Thank you, sir. Feeling fine, thank you. Springfield Minnesota. We have some.
No, it's just that that's a public speech.
Okay, yeah, just speak up there.
That's in the very beginning. Public.
Okay, I'll take us to the snacks. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Okay, at this time I'll call the meeting to order, and I'd like to welcome everyone here today for the July meeting of the Board of Supervisors for Botetourt County. And we welcome you here today. I'm about to lose my voice, so we'll try to get started here. First thing we would like to do is I'd like to ask Dr. Scott if he would lead us into the Pledge of Allegiance.
Paul, stand. Close session. Yes, close session.
My apologies, I've got to come out of closed
Sorry.
session first. At this time, I would make a motion to come out of closed session, and would like to read the following resolution that, to the best of the board members' knowledge, on the public business matters lawfully exempt from open meeting requirements, and on such matters as were identified in the motion to go into closed session or heard, discussed, or considered during the closed session.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay.
All right, Dr. Bailey, how do you vote, sir?
Yes.
Mr. Swain?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Skyline?
Yes.
Mr. Clinton?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Paul, stand. Join me. Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dr. Scott.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we're going to have a moment of silence. During this moment of silence, I would just ask that if you want to pray any way you like, or just meditate or whatever. If you do pray, I would just ask that you would pray for the members on the board here for wisdom and for understanding of the issues that we have at hand, to help us, that the Lord will give us wisdom to make the right decisions. So at this time, we'll have a moment of silence. All right, thank you. At this time of the meeting, we do have a public comment period, and I have two people that have signed to make comments during this time. The first one is it Lionel Gregory? Mr. Gregory? Okay, if you would, come forward to the podium and give us your name and your address, and just want to remind you that you have 3 minutes to speak.
The Algonquin, the French and Indian Revolutionary War of 1812, Mexican Civil War, Spanish-American World War I, World War II, Korean, Vietnam, Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm, Global War on Terrorism, and Operation Enduring Freedom, and Iraqi Freedom. Now, I've lived through over half of these wars myself, and we're all hearing people say that they don't like guns, they don't like wars. And they complain of the atom bomb in World War II, they complain of Korea, Vietnam, Mid-Eastern wars. And for those reasons now, or in the future, localities could elect mayors, county, city councils, or boards of supervisors that fit those anti-everything characters described. And the monuments of all these wars could be subject to removal without any citizen voices being heard. It's time for us, you and me, to stand up, speak up, and be candid in such an important and emotional matter of history and our personal feelings by either participating in or having relatives or friends in all of these wars that have given us freedom, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Thank you, sir.
I want to thank the board for hearing our request that we're going to present to you here today. Thank you for that, LLC. Thank you for your time and consideration. My partner will be here shortly to wrap all this up. So I'm saying I'd like to ask you to consider him whenever he gets ready to speak on this matter. But I just want to thank y'all for taking the time out and for hearing us. We look forward to moving forward with this project. Yes, sir.
Could you give us your name and your address?
I'm sorry. Bill Lyman. I did live at 1495 Haymaker Town for about 14 years. I now currently reside in Roanoke. I am a park developer of this Greenfield Meadows LLC. And Hussein Alam is my other partner. My wife is the other partner. And as I said, I just wanted to thank y'all for taking time to hear our request today on the comprehensive plan for Greenfield Meadows LLC. We look forward to working with y'all and making building a lovely place here so that the people of Botetourt County, the working class people of Botetourt County, can actually have a place that they can afford to live. We're looking at doing quality housing. We're looking at doing quality development. We're looking at becoming an asset to Botetourt County, both for the people and for the board and for the county itself. So we're very excited about this opportunity. We have done extensive studies on it, and we believe that it's something that will be a great fit for Botetourt County and will help propel Botetourt County into the future. And we believe that this is a model that can also help other jurisdictions as far as help them in the housing industry. So we thank you again for the opportunity. And like I said, when Hussein gets here and they come on to ask questions or stuff like that, we have the team, the architects, and everybody that can answer any questions you have at that particular time. So,
All right, thank you, sir. And next, Stevie Lowe.
Listen to on the clock. Carry on. Stevie Lowell, Coverdale, or Stephen Lowell, Coverdale, Virginia. Thank you all so much for being here and getting through these tough times. I have three minor things. I have three issues I'd like to speak to you about. One is there's a few of us in business and throughout the county that are kind of coming together, and we're looking at maybe what we're looking at, and we see that it's possible. We want you all to maybe look at it too, maybe be invited to some of our meetings. But we're looking at maybe a 3-year, 30% reduction in taxes in Botetourt County across the board, business tax, real estate tax, and so forth. This pandemic that we're going through, and we'd like you all to participate. We can notify you at a later time, and it's some people that have served previously in Botetourt in different capacities. That's one issue. I wanted to kind of bring that up to you briefly. And if you have any questions, I'll make all three of my points, and if you have any questions, then I'll leave you and we'll go from there. The second thing is, I'm in contact with Lisa Chin, and she is a fabulous lady. I think you all know that too. And of course, she has certain conditions. Didn't discuss nothing of that nature, but I'm invited her back. I apologize to her for the type of treatment that she received in Botetourt County, and I labeled us our cabal. And she has talking to this gentleman that was before us and other gentlemen that will speak after us, talk about the growth of Botetourt County. She's a good fit for Botetourt County, so we're looking into seeing if she would, if she'd even just accept an apology. I apologize to her about that. And then the third thing is that looking for some kind of controlled growth in Botetourt County. My children and grandchildren can't afford to buy anything here and live, and the trailers and manufactured housing and all that, it's so taboo. But I know a lot of people that have grew up in such a thing and didn't grow up in a $500,000 or maybe even $500,000 house and so forth. But that's just my views on things. We all can't live in a restricted HMO or neighborhood of some type, but I like some real, not me altogether, but we all like to have some real estate that people can actually afford to live in. And I like the trailer park in Hollins. There's some churches that do a lot of work in that area. But anyhow, that was the three topics. I'll answer any questions if you want, and I'll just yield back. I run out of time anyhow.
Okay. Any members of the board have anything? Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. So we'll be in touch with you to see if you want to participate in some meetings that we're going to have. All right, thank you all.
Mr. Hussein, Alan.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'm going to speak a few words about the proposed development on Edsler Road. I think to kind of put it in perspective, today's discussion and vote is to allow amendment to the comprehensive plan. So part of the property, kind of going technical, is zone medium density, kind of a lower half of the property, and the upper half of the property is zoned as lower density rural. And our request is to zone the remaining half of the property to medium density to allow us to put some very needed housing that's required or needed in Botetourt County. Botetourt County is short on housing, particularly middle-income housing, ranging anywhere from $150,000 homes to $250,000 to $75,000. That's kind of a big need for the county. So as I started working with Mr. Bynum, looking at different options for this property, our goal was to kind of really fill the need, the community's need for middle-income housing. We're not set on the size, the density, how much housing needs to go. We're looking for guidance from the community, from citizens, from the board, from the administration up there, and some really good qualified people there in the community. So, of course, it's going to be based on what the community needs, what the market needs. As we know, in Greenfield Industrial Park, there is, depending on how the economy is doing, close to 2,000 people working there, and at 5 o'clock, they head on 220, and I live in Ashland Plantation, so very familiar with it. And they crowd out roads, 220, and then 581, and going towards 81. Some of them go live in Holland, some of them live in North Roanoke, and all of that. So our goal is to try to address that need. We believe the infrastructure is already there on Edsler Road with sewer line, water line, main gas lines. We talked with a lot of the utility companies, and they support that growth because the infrastructure is already there. The intersection has been recently, over the last several years, has been widened to accommodate that, and based on the traffic studies, you would see that it can accommodate essentially several hundred residential units and about 20, 30,000 square feet of even commercial portion of this development without having to improve this intersection anymore. So I think our big picture goal is to, and maybe I'm getting too long.
You had 3 minutes, if you could just wrap it up.
I'll wrap it up, Mr. Martin. So I think to wrap it up there, our goal is to create good quality community housing that's middle income housing that can support the good working community of Botetourt County, and do it in a very nice architectural style, good quality construction that we can all be proud of as board members and as a community. Thanks so much.
Thank you, sir. Again, Mrs. Fain asked me to remind everyone, if you're wearing a mask and you speak up a little bit louder so she can hear what you're saying. At this time, I would like to ask Steve Vaughn to come to the front of the podium down front, and your wife can come with you if she would like. What do you mean no? If I knew you was on a cane, I could have come up there. I'm sorry. That's all right. How are you, sir? Well, like I'm doing a little bit better than you are. We're glad to have you. Our Vice Chairman, Dr. Scott Horn, has something here for you here first.
Yeah, I know you come every morning and saw your name up there, so I want to make sure you take it home with you too. No.
Your name tag has been retired from the Board of Zoning Appeals. And I do have a proclamation I'd like to read to you, Steve. It says, whereas the Botetourt County Board of Zoning Appeals is tasked with considering variances and landowner appeals of zoning decisions made by the Director of Community Development. And whereas the Board of Zoning Appeals has benefited from the good judgment of Mr. P. Stephen Vaughn, who represented the Penn Council District from April 1st, 2008 until January 6, 2020. And whereas Mr. Vaughn has provided insight to the Board of Zoning Appeals decisions while applying the policies and practices of planning law, and his knowledge and experience will be greatly missed. And whereas Mr. Vaughn has greatly contributed to his community in many capacities through talents and energy, in addition to serving on the Board of Zoning and Appeals, which has assisted Botetourt County as it continues to experience periods of change and growth. And whereas Mr. Vaughn has demonstrated uncommon devotion to Botetourt County and its people, and his passion and sincere dedication to continue community service will take a new shape with his recent appointment to the Botetourt County Electoral Board. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Botetourt County Board of Supervisors here expresses its individual and collective gratitude and respect for the 12 years of service given by Mr. P. Stephen Vaughn to the citizens of Botetourt County through his service on the Botetourt County Board of Zoning Appeals. And that's signed by me, and it's on behalf of the entire Board of Supervisors. Thank you for your service. Okay, thank you very much. this time, I believe I need to ask Jason Ferguson, our chief for Botetourt County, if he can come down. I think he has a presentation, and he has someone that he would like to introduce to the group here today.
Yes, sir. My introduction will be brief because she's on a timeline. I'll give you some closing remarks. But this is Dr. Emma Jeffries, a patient of ours, and I'll give her the floor.
Hi. As you may or may not know, I'm a large and swollen veterinarian that was in a car crash about 6 weeks ago. And because of Botetourt County hiring EMS, I am here today alive and recovering. Not 100%, but I'm on my way to there hopefully. And I am on a very good schedule, so I wish I could stay similar. But I just need to give an incredible heartfelt thanks to everybody on Botetourt Fire and EMS. These guys are amazing, wonderful, compassionate, and I cannot thank them enough. I am not here without them, and so they are incredibly important to me right now.
Then I want to say to you what Harold Crime said a while ago, that they got to give you the roses. We don't get this a lot. And it's normally when we leave somebody at the hospital, that's the last we see them. And we thank you so much for being able to be here on the world. But your thankfulness and your consideration of being here is awesome. So we appreciate it.
It is a pleasure. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Yes, ma'am.
For those that don't know, this good doctor was involved in an accident on 81 with a tractor trailer. She doesn't remember anything that went on at the accident scene. But after everything was over with, she found out, contacted Chief Ferguson, and wanted to come down and thank all of those involved. We had 28 employees downstairs a little earlier that she shook hands with and met to thank them for what they did. Chief?
Yes, sir. And I would just like to echo Dr. Jeffries' comments. Unfortunately, she had a doctor's appointment that she had to get to, so we definitely don't want to derail that on her road to recovery. But just to be a little more specific for the group, yes, sir, at 1:30, she was able to reunite with the majority of the rescuers that were there with her that day. This was the day of widespread flooding on June 17th throughout the county. A little bit after 1 o'clock in the afternoon is when her crash occurred. And literally, I had some pictures, but we'll share those with you at a later date. Sheriff Ward was the first on scene and took those photographs just to remind people about the dangers of the interstate. She was trapped for over an hour and 17 minutes in her car underneath the tractor trailer. And so she's living through a system that works. The men and women at the top that are standing were, I believe, unless I've missed somebody seated, those are the majority of the folks that were involved that day. And I just want to recognize the individual agencies that are part of the system that helped save her life. Of course, the initial first due area was Buchanan Fire Department's first due, as well as assisted by Troutville Fire Department. Of course, you have the Botetourt Fire and EMS career staff for our ambulances and EMS supervisor, as well as some chief officers. Roanoke County played a part of this as well. Their part-time ambulance from the Reed Mountain Fire Station was on the response. And then, of course, I mentioned Sheriff Ward and some of his officers, Virginia State Police. And last but certainly not least, one of the gentlemen was not able to join us today personally, but we were able to get him on FaceTime to meet Emma. And then, of course, Dr. Bernier is with us in the crowd as well. There were 2 emergency physicians on site with Dr. Jeffries during her extrication, which allowed for more advanced medications and procedures to help assist her in really saving her life because, she spoke to having staples in her head to help stop the bleeding. That was done on site in the car, not an hour and 45 minutes later in the ER. So blood loss was limited and things of that nature. So this is, and let me not forget, a component that gets gotten quite often, our dispatcher, Abe Gillum, is amongst the crowd as well. I was in the dispatch center because of all the crazy going on, trying to help facilitate different responses than what the computer would normally spit out. So of course, That's a component that is the true first response that takes that initial call. So we definitely want to credit her and the dispatch center staff as well. But Dr. Jeffries did reach out. Her mother actually was the first to reach out. And comically, with her being a large animal vet, we've established some rapport and maybe a conversation about her being part of our technical large animal rescue response, because we do a decent amount of horse and cattle and odd situations that oftentimes require an emergency veterinarian. So with that, I'll pause and just like to express thanks on behalf of Dr. Jeffries and her mother and sister, and of course for myself and our staff. We couldn't be more grateful for the response and outcome.
And ladies and gentlemen, it's not with that kind of look in the back of the room. That's just part of the group that was on the scene out there. And from my understanding, it was really a big mess out there. So once again, thanks to all of you. And you have another group of people you wanted to introduce.
Yes, sir, I do. Thank you, everyone. Graduates, would you join me?
I'm in the board meeting.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the group of 6 gentlemen that are joining on the floor right now, you've met them once. They look a little bit different. Maybe, I think it's red shirts at the time, back in January of this year. And I felt it appropriate to reintroduce them to you because on July 10th, all of these gentlemen graduated from the Roanoke Regional Fire and EMS Training Academy recruit class of number 26. Since the first full week of January, these folks have been involved in some rigorous training out at the Kessler Mill Training Center, along with cohorts for Roanoke City, Roanoke County, and the City of Salem. And we're very thankful to have each one of them as part of our ranks today. And I just wanted to reintroduce them to you. Billy Ferguson, to my immediate left. Billy is joining our ranks he was a Roanoke City dispatcher. And just a little personal bio there. Billy and his wife, Krista, are expecting a baby in December. And we're excited to see that happen. All of these gentlemen are in the primes of their lives, right? This is their first step into the big career opportunity to carry them through, hopefully, to retirement. So that's why I'm giving you a little background there. Mr. Nathan Newell, Nathan's third down. He's newly married as of December to his wife, Tiffany. Joseph Mackey. Joseph is engaged and is soon to be married on August the 14th. So he's got a date coming fast. Ben Meadows. Ben was a volunteer with Iron Gate Fire and Rescue, so he knew a little bit about the Botetourt Fire and EMS system, and he joins our ranks with that experience and knowledge, especially from the northern rural end of the county. That's very helpful. Nathan Shields. Nathan has been with us for some time, a little bit over a year prior to entering the academy as a part-time paramedic. Nathan is from the Blue Ridge area and volunteered at Reed Mountain. He is also engaged to his fiancee, Allie, with a date in November of 2021. And then Hunter Smith. Hunter joins us after being a volunteer in Roanoke County in the Back Creek area. And Hunter, in his off time, enjoys his secondary employment in the landscaping business. So I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the hundreds of hours these gentlemen achieved their entry-level fire training, their entry-level EMS training, and spent the last 2 weeks of grueling training doing heavy tactical rescue work, which Mr. Crimes from Roanoke County was part of the cadre that helped instruct them. So again, we'd just like to welcome them to the team and make sure you know the faces of the first staff that joined us this week.
I can recognize the guys, but that's about all. Okay, yeah. Well, gentlemen, congratulations, and we welcome you to the fire department here in Botetourt County, and we're looking forward to having you here for many years. So we just ask you to be careful. We appreciate the work you do.
Thanks, congratulations.
Any other board members have anything they'd like to? Okay, thank you, gentlemen. It's good to have you on board. All right. Agenda items 3 through 8 are in the consent agenda. Are there any questions on anything in the consent agenda? And if there are none,
Mr. Chairman, I would like to focus briefly on item number 4. Adoption of deed to transfer the remaining undeveloped Botetourt Center Greenfield property to the EDA. No part at all with the overall action contemplated there. From a detailed viewpoint, I'd just like to bring up, and I don't know if there's any way that we can amend this deed, or it may not be necessary, but the point is, there are pockets of, I would say, intense archaeological significance in that, in the property that we're talking about, and in particular, it's in an area, the ones of most interest are in an area that are on the margins of this property. Pretty much between the recreation center and the property in question here. So it's hard to say exactly where these areas of interest are, and there's several acres total. Hard to say exactly where they are relative to the large-scale considerations of the deed. But if there's some way that we can, so I don't think that these particular sites are in jeopardy through this action, but I don't know. And further, I don't think that it's in an area that's likely to be developed. Like I said, it's right on the western edge of parcel B. I just have a concern that somewhere down the road, 20, 25 years from now, somebody's going to say, well, yeah, let's go ahead and build it here, and it's going to be on top of these thousands of years old historical sites. So, I don't know, and that's the attorney, if there's any thoughts there, if there's anything we can do, or is it just an understanding that we get in the record of today's meeting?
Well, obviously, sir, if there is something of historical significance, then it would be appropriate for the county to do an archaeological survey to analyze what is there and the exact location for those particular items. And then, if they are found to be historically significant and the county wishes to preserve them in some manner, then a further action later on down the road can be taken by the board to either create some type of conservation easement over those particular parcels or designate them in some other way, shape, or form with appropriate markings and that type of thing. But that's usually what is done. An initial archaeological survey is done to evaluate the historical significance of those particular.
Yeah, and actually where my comments come from is from the archaeological survey that was done on the county's behalf, I think, in 1994. So that's been done. And they're located. They're just not mentioned in this deed. Like I said, I don't think they're in danger of being in a developable area, but I can't prove it.
Well, we certainly can make slight amendments to the language as it's presented, if that is the board's wish. We can certainly incorporate language that would, by reference those particular historic parcels or sections of the parcels based on that archaeological survey, and that could be incorporated by reference into the deed, and then therefore it is clearly designated that there is some historical significance in those properties.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing I would see.
Sure.
So,
We can certainly add that to the language. Sure.
okay. Then will we proceed with this document as it is?
You would simply proceed with approving the proposed deed as discussed with the amendment as discussed.
I'll try it here.
With the amendment as discussed here, I think. And so what will happen is the deed will be approved. We'll just incorporate the language after the meeting, but you won't have to take any further action. It will simply be approved, but we will
so be in the minutes?
Yes.
Okay.
Mark,
That's
just a
good.
quick question. We have to have an approval for the language? Are we going to have an approval for the language that's being put into the amendment here?
Well, sure,
Or is it just-
if you want to hold off on and actually have the ability to look exactly at the language, you certainly can do that. You can postpone action on this now. Or if you want to go ahead and just approve it with the amendment as discussed, and leave it up to us to just simply incorporate the appropriate language.
Personally, I'd be okay with just taking it on faith that we'll be able to do the amendment with the proper language. So, all of the words today.
In that form, then, you want to move forward with the consent agenda?
Yes,
Agenda?
Madam President.
If we go with now, second, make a motion to approve.
And I do have a motion and a second to approve this. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carried. Thank you, gentlemen. Public hearing next week, agenda item number 9, we have a public hearing on an FY21 budget appropriation amendment regarding the new Colonial Elementary School project and relocation of county offices to Greenfield, and Mr. Tony Zarrell will bring discussion on this. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and all in attendance. This public hearing concerns itself with the new fiscal year and the need to appropriate funds for 2 projects. First project is the Colonial Elementary construction project. On May 15, 2018, the county received VPSA debt proceeds totaling $22.5 million. When we ended the FY20 fiscal year, proceeds available totaled $12,358,841.08. So we moved into the new fiscal year. These proceeds have to be appropriated in order to be applied to construction and related costs going forward. In addition, based upon current projected costs for the project, it will be necessary to appropriate county funds in the amount of $2.5 million in order to bring the project to completion. This figure is the same figure identified in FY20. Lastly, the county is in the midst of renovating the Greenfield ETC/administrative building in order to accommodate housing several county departments. At the end of FY20, there was a budget balance of $784,450.91 available to be reappropriated for this project. This project is moving along swiftly at this point, thus the need to bring this FY20 CIP budget balance forward to FY21. 3 appropriations total $15,643,291.99. Therefore, staff recommendations are as follows. Number 1, hold the public hearing on the $15,643,291.99 and total proposed amendments to the FY2021 budget for the county. Number 2, close the public hearing and approve the proposed amendment to the FY21 budget county budget as follows. A, an appropriation for the Colonial Ultramarine BPSA 2018 Fund 303 in the amount of $12,358,841.08. For current remaining BPSA Colonial Elementary Construction project proceeds. B, an appropriation in the amount of $2,500,000 from undesignated general fund balance to the Colonial Elementary Construction Project Fund 303. And C, a reappropriation of FY20 budgeted funds in the amount of $784,450.91 to be applied CIP County Offices Relocation 100-409-400-12-110-8012-414. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the members of the board? Okay, at this time, we'll open the public hearing. Ms. Fanning, do we have anyone that signed up to speak?
Yes, sir.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this? If not, I'll close the public hearing. And we have several things here to do. We need to approve the proposed amendments to the 2021 Botetourt County budget. As Mr. Zarrella had mentioned, it may be in see here on your packet. Do I hear any questions or any concerns with this before we take a motion to approve? If not, do I hear a motion to approve that the following appropriation for fiscal year 2021 is made to allow carryover of approved funding begun in fiscal year 2019 and 20. General fund operation $784,450.91. Do I hear a motion?
Got a question.
Yes.
So is the motion to accept all A, B, and C proposals to the budget?
That's what I was.
Accepting one at a time.
Could I ask the council here, do we have to identify each one of them, or can we do them all together?
You certainly can do them all together.
So then, I'll make a motion approving A, B, and C for the budget, Botetourt County budget.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, Dr. Scott Horn makes a motion and Dr. Bailey seconds. Any question on the motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Zarella. I believe you have another one.
Yes, sir.
CARES Act.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This public hearing concerns itself with the new fiscal year and the need to appropriate funds received from the CARES Act of 2020. The agenda right up in the packet provides the background in terms of how the CARES Act funding developed and when the Commonwealth shared these funds with cities and localities based upon respective FY19 population figures. Botetourt County received its share of these funds on June 1st, 2020, and a total amount of $2,915,679. Also included in the agenda write-up are guidelines for spending these funds and the span of time that the allowable expenditures must be incurred, with that period being March 1st, 2020 through December 30th, 2020. At last month's regular scheduled Board of Supervisors meeting, the county administrator provided examples of uses of grant funds. You've also previously been updated by Mr. McFadden with respect to one specific use of these funds in the area of small business economic relief due to the negative impact of COVID-19 pandemic. The appropriation request is to bring forward the funds to be utilized in the FY21 timeframe that has been approved. Therefore, staff recommendations are as follows. Number one, hold a public hearing on $2,915,679 proposed amendment to the 2020-21 Botetourt County budget. Number two, close the public hearing and approve proposed amendments to the 2020-2021 Botetourt County budget in the form of an appropriation in the amount of $2,915,679 for Fund 260, CARES Act of 2020. Are there any questions?
Gentlemen, are there any questions for Mr. Zarella before we go into a public hearing? Okay, if not, I'll open the public hearing. Mrs. Fain, has anyone signed up? Anyone from the audience have any comments? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing and have a discussion among the supervisors on whether to approve or not the proposed amendment for the 2021 Botetourt County budget in the forms of an appropriation in the amount of $2,915,679 to Fund 260, which is CARES Act of 2020. Any discussion, gentlemen?
I have no discussion. I so approve.
If you make a motion to approve, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Clinton, second. Any question? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, motion carried. Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Zarella, you still up again with approval of transfers and additional appropriations?
Yes, sir, thank you.
Sir.
For the month of July, there's one transfer request, which is a recurring quarterly item. With respect to appropriation request, there are 13 master appropriations and 4 regular appropriations being requested. Pass-through items 1 through 5 represent expenditure reimbursements, contributions, miscellaneous receipts. Pass-through items 6 through 13 represent appropriations for several discrete funds that require new appropriations to spend funds in FY21. As for regular appropriations being requested, items 14 through 17 are for expected funding for transactions above and beyond what the initial FY21 partial appropriation provided for. Respectfully requested that these appropriations be approved by the board. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Zarella?
Chairman, if no questions, I move for approval.
A motion and a second to move for approval. Any question on the motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, motion carried. Okay, Mr. Zarella, I believe you got the next one again.
Sir. Item B. Item 11B is a request for the reappropriation of budgeted funds for the Botetourt 2019 broadband project. To date, 49% of the grant funds have been reimbursed to Craig Botetourt Electric Cooperative, or CBAC. This reappropriation will provide for the availability of the remaining grant funds for $488,602.63. Staff recommends the reappropriation of these funds so that the project can continue. The CBAC can receive the balance of the available funds as the project continues towards completion. A resolution provided as documentation for the reappropriation request. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the members of the board? If not, do I hear a motion to approve? Dr. Scott Orr makes a motion to approve. Dr. Mr. Ray Sloan. Mr. Sloan made a second. Any question on the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, motion approved. Okay. All right, Mr. Zarella, accounts payable summary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Total expenditures to be requested for approval for July for the general fund, including debt service and all other funds, is combined $1,689,273.44. Payable disbursements of note for the month are as follows: the technology services, $44,427. The Harris Enterprise Resources for annual software maintenance and support. Under local health department, $85,204 to the Botetourt Health Department for the first quarterly operational support payment. Under regional organizations, $33,288 paid to Roanoke Valley Allegheny Commission for FY21 dues, and $38,300 paid to Visit Virginia Blue Ridge for their funding. This is payment 1 of 4 for FY21. Under CIP, county offices relocation, $170,240 paid to FNS building renovations. This is application number 2 for the project. Under Fire and EMS, $67,210 paid to VFIS for the accident and sickness policy for the county fire and rescue volunteers, and payments totaling $47,287 to VFIS for installment payments for the fire and EMS vehicle and property insurance coverage. And once again, under regional organizations, $34,453 paid to Roanoke Regional Partnership representing semi-annual support funds. Are there any questions or comments regarding the accounts payable request for the month of July?
Okay, any questions for Mr. Zarella? Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Dr. Bailey approves. And Dr. Scott Orr will second that motion. Any question on the motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, motion carried. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next, item number 13, approval of school capital reserve fund expenditures. Mr. LaRue and Dr. Russ. You recognize him sitting up in the back with his mask on.
The masked man was coming down the steps.
They could be twins, couldn't they?
Except one's short, one's broad, one's skinny.
All right.
Mr. Chair, board members, I think each one of you have already had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Russ, the new superintendent of schools in Botetourt County. We certainly do appreciate Dr. Russ being with us today and to be before you, and would like to introduce him formally to you as well as to the public in the board setting. So, Dr. Russ, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
With regard to the agenda item was the School Capital Reserve Fund. As you know, since 2017, there's been a policy that was in place that the unspent dollars that were associated with the school system were retained by the school system with the approval of the board to actually expend those dollars. What this does is that this incentivizes the school system to actually be very frugal in their spending associated with capital projects, and what they have is a list of items that are before you that need approval for those expenditures. Those total expenditures would be $319,935.57. That is actually consists of school bus cameras, chiller repair, bus lock cameras, James River High School restroom upgrades, CAMS HVAC system, James River High School chiller, Reed Mountain tree removal, and Eagle Rock water supply system design. Many of these expenditures were associated with safety issues with regard to the school system. And some of those were needed, especially in the heat that we've been experiencing, and also the airflow that would be needed for when school goes back in session. So I would bring those items to you and would ask for your approval. One of the things that would end up having as the Capital Reserve Fund prior to the spending was $535,512.20. With these expenditures, would end up leaving a balance that will be carried into the FY21 accounting time period of $215,576.63. This does not account for any savings that may have taken place as a result of school not being in session during the spring of this year. And so those numbers will be accounted for during all the way up through and accounted for during period 13 that you're familiar with, and Dr. Russ and I'm sure the finance director will be coming back to you with items that they need to be purchased out of those savings in the future. But that would be the request, is that you approve the $319,935.57 request. Have any questions?
Any questions from the members of the board? Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
A motion by Dr. Scott, or second by Mr. Sloan to approve. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, the motion has been approved. Okay, Dr. Buss, did you have?
I would like to say thank you for the welcome. And also want to assure the board, I made myself familiar with the Capital Reserve Fund policy for the spending of the reserve funds at the end of each year, and can assure you that we will follow that policy to the T. Thank you all.
Since we got you here, well, explain this to the Eagle Rock water system.
Can you repeat that question?
I think that was a joke.
Dr. Bailey? Yes, Dr. Bailey had a question.
Dr. Bailey, I'm sorry.
No, I'm good. I do have questions, Mr. Chairman, if I may. I know we have a meeting here coming up soon, but thank you, welcome.
Thank you very much.
One of the things that you made mention, I think that because the school's being closed and we're not having the utilization of the utilities as much, it'd be interesting to see what that number really is. And I know we have no clue at this point in time, but certainly interested to come back to the board and find out what that is.
And we will come back with exact numbers. There are several savings we had because of the closure beginning of March. Gas for transportation, electricity in the buildings, other expenditures that are common throughout the school year. So there will be savings, and we will have that exact amount for you at another meeting.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Next, we have the Highway Department, VDOT. Mr. Party here.
Yes.
Where is it? Oh. Yeah, they put lower glasses on there.
Mr. Martin, Mike, wait just 1 second while Jason gets in line. It'll take just a couple of minutes. Get Mr. Martin.
Let's take about a 10-minute recess then while he's working on that. We'll be back in 10 minutes.
He showed you.
I couldn't present, so, and the audio wasn't working, so. I just can't guarantee the time when I won't be on my right now.
This fell out.
Well, and I was out in the field this morning. My wife said last night, I didn't have the person. I said,
You bring us chef's choice.
I do for a fact.
I mean, how long ago did they just break? All right, yeah, so now with the, are you checking the, I made you an admin of the BPAN page. I don't know if you ever accepted it or not, or if you'll ever even use it. Botetourt Public Affairs Network? What we're doing here. It's just like an emergency sort of thing, but, are you on Facebook now on there? Yeah, go to the BPAN page. Yeah, Botetourt Public Affairs Network. Yeah, it's got the, okay, yeah. See now, because I'm using OBS, which I can't say enough good things about, I put that image up there. It's still live streaming, but I was able to kill the sound, and now I can charge the computer while we're on break. It seems to be going by pretty quickly now. both of them feel like things that could have happened in New York in the 80s at any time. Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, listen to this, though. We got... Is that because I'm talking? I can't turn it. Right. So right now, that's why I've got all these are muted out. Yeah, which is perfect for me. Yeah, see, right now I'm up to 59%. Where did they break at? They didn't talk about the highway department yet? They did? Okay. And the smart scale thing, did they talk about smart scale? Okay. I'm just trying to figure out where we are. Yeah, so they did talk about the highway department. That's the last one. So you've never been to these before? It's like a bad high school, it's a bad school assembly, is basically what it is. You see, like, this is truly a community service. I mean, really, I should be here because I live here and I own property here and everything, but it's so boring. So boring. I know, that's why. Yeah, pretty sure.
VDOT. Mr. Marty, I apologize for making you wait a little bit. It's good to see you again.
Sir, it's a privilege and a pleasure to be here again. It really is. It's a beautiful day in Botetourt County. I'm so glad to be here. I dressed up for the occasion. If you'll forgive the dress this time, I'll promise the next time I'm here, I'll be sad.
Well, you look comfortable, I'll have to say that.
Indeed I am, sir. Indeed I am. That's what happens when you work at home these days. And I've done a lot of that. All right, so for the board report, hopefully you have a copy of that. The 220 safety improvements, the big thing there, that low spot of Botetourt, we had hoped that that thing would be open this past Monday. That didn't happen. They seem to face a couple of delays with that thing yet again. But I'm told that that thing is going to happen relatively quickly. And I keep asking, they keep telling me. So they did lose one of their project managers up there, not the contractor, but the consultant that's doing our engineering construction. She left, and that's a big blow. I think she was really, really helpful. On the ballpark bridge there's a couple of things going on there now. They're trying to do two things during the day from 9 to 3. They're working on what's called the stringers. The stringers are the part of the bridge that go under the deck, that support the deck between the piers. So they're working on the stringers. And they're also trying to paint. As a matter of fact, they were supposed to start painting this week, but they had an interruption in their supply, and I hear they're not going to be able to start the painting, even though the painting would be done at night. So they've been working through some of the issues with access for the citizens, had several conversations with them, and unfortunately, there will definitely be times when they just can't access. That's just all there is to it. You just can't replace the bridge, particularly the deck, and have people continue to use it 24 hours a day. And that's what's happening. Anyway, we're trying to work through those issues with them. fall, the bridge rehabilitation, that was complete, that was done. Secondary projects that were coming up for next year, we've worked on those, we've got the list into the district is reviewing. The primary routes, we've been showing you that now in the report for a while, so that information for the paving on the primaries next year has not changed. Land development issues, the county way station is continuing on. There's a commercial entrance issue that we're working through with them. It's a spacing issue, and we won't be able to get that resolved here pretty quickly. Fieldstone, there's continued discussion about it, and they're continuing to work on their entrance. They're moving forward there. With the cell tower up on Parsons Road, which is frontage road FO53, as you can see, we sent comments back and we're waiting for their resubmission. We just sent the second review comments for the Sample Lane project, so that's ongoing. The Langman Town gas line, they have actually now presented to us the cost estimate. We'll receive that, and so the actual approval for that work for the gas line on Langman Town has been sent to the gas company. So that they're moving forward there. Greenfield, we've done the TIA, and there's a page full of recommendations, but with those recommendations, they have been given concurrence from the department. And then Little Coochie, that is a site plan at the intersection of Reed Mountain Road and Teresa Lane. That is my understanding is that's carry out only. There's no seating involved. Teresa Lane is not currently in the system, so we're working through that process to get Teresa Lane into the system. That's one of the developments that the bank has taken over. So they're working through that process, and hopefully by the time Little Coochies is ready, then we'll have the opportunity to draw the part of Teresa Lane that goes from the old cul-de-sac. It's already being constructed from the old cul-de-sac out to Reed Mountain Road. We'll get that consistent and move on. And there's been a whole lot of permits issued here as there normally are. Botetourt County is really moving and going on. Murray Drive, we're getting very close to starting. We're still trying to wrangle with AEP over some utility poles. They've got a couple of poles that we really need to get moved. One of them that's a little further away from Langman Town, we could probably work around it for a while. But the one down at Langman Town, that one's really got the work's gummed up. It's in a location where we've got to widen inside that curve and then install drop inlets and drainage improvements. And so we really need to get that pole moved. And we're trying to work out a start date. If we don't start here next week on the Murray, then we'll move to another project and keep that contractor engaged until we can get this issue resolved. One of the things I've been discussing with the staff is the time frames. We believe that the actual construction is probably going to take about 3 calendar months, and the plants, asphalt plants around here typically close around Thanksgiving. So that means we really need to get going by the end of August so that we can meet that deadline. So I've shared that information with the county. We're all trying to coax AEP along as best we can and working through that issue. Glen Wilton Road, the soil mill project, that has not happened yet. That cannot happen, or it could, but that would be very problematic with that detour Locust Road. So we're waiting until the Locust Road detour can be pulled up before we move on to do that stabilization. Now, if the bank continues to progress to failure, then we'd have to jump in there and do the work. Contractor's under contract. He's got everything he needs. The only thing we need is to get that detour open. So we're hoping that the 220 project will get open here pretty quickly. Stone Cold Road, which is one of our little rustics, had an issue there that we had to work on the soil mill project where we had some erosion from the creek that was going to impact the road. So we've taken care of that in advance of Stone Cold. And we can't start Stone Cold until we get Murray Drive completed. So the long as Murray keeps getting pushed off, Stone Cold keeps getting pushed off. The arterial preservations are just no change in status of that now. We thought that would have happened quickly, but COVID has had some rather strange effects on a lot of things, including that. There are 3 other projects we're working on. We're working on one on Blue Ridge Drive. It's a drainage issue. That project, we got a design for it, we've got a cost estimate for it. That's the one where the county has a drainage easement on the corner of the property. So that's something that we'll need to work through. We believe that that easement would allow us to move and work on the project as the county's agent. And we would then, since that is a state-owned asset, we're going to, one way or the other, have to work out an easement for the department to own an easement over the things that we maintain. We need an easement in the Commonwealth's name. So that's something that we'll have to work through as well. Then a block over and about a block down on Oak Street, Oak Drive. There's another project over there that we're working on. Then there's one on Mountain Pass Road that involves a storm sewer system that was put in that was undersized, and it's caused some issues. So we're working with the property owners now. We're going to remove that old storm sewer system and revert back to a ditch system and go from there. So they don't show up on this board report, but they're certainly the ones that we need to work on. Azalea Road, the through truck restriction, we've been working on that. As a matter of fact, when I leave here, I'm going to go to the courthouse and ask the clerk if they'll post this notice. Tomorrow, there will be a notice put in the paper about the through truck restriction, and the comments that have come from there will come to me, and then we'll respond to any comments that we get. So that is moving on as well. Now, that completes what I have for you. Do you have any questions or comments or things that I need to work on?
Members of the board, do you have any questions? Dr. Bailey?
I do. Mr. Barney, just had a question about this in the Buchanan District. It's Beaver Dam Road and Bridge down there. I think that discussion has been had before in the past. Apparently that bridge is potentially in some disrepair and maybe not substantial enough for a heavy fire truck to go across it. I'm wondering there. According to some of the residents down there anyway, so I wonder if we might check that out.
Sure, absolutely. We are required by the federal government to do an inspection on every bridge that we maintain at least once every 2 years. So what I can do is I can check that bridge report and see if there's deficiencies or whatever. But if the posting hasn't changed, then it's the same condition. I mean, the condition may have changed enough since the last inspection that posting may have changed. I don't know. But I'll check on that on the last inspection date for that. And
Thank you.
Back to you on that. Yes, sir.
Anyone else have any comments for Mr. Barney?
Yes, sir, I do in Amsterdam, Long Island, and on breaking news, I guess. The old line was back what you talked about just now, the through truck restrictions on Azalea. Just as a matter of curiosity, once they're in place, once the signage is in place, then you customarily go back and study the result, the traffic studies or anything to see if it's reduced the line of truck traffic.
Typically, we do not.
Okay.
Not unless someone requests that we do that. Hopefully, that's going to resolve the issue, but as with this particular issue, there are enough people out there that know me well enough that they can pick up the phone and call and say, hey, we still got tractor trailers coming through here. Now, to go into that just a little bit further, we're not really an enforcement agency. So what we would do is we'll have to work with the sheriff to make sure the sheriff is working on patrolling or policing that frequently enough that it makes the tractor trailers understand it's not where they want to go. So that's typically how the enforcement of that occurs. Of course, the other thing that could happen is the state police can do it as well. But one of the two law enforcement agencies would need to actually enforce the signs.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Then the new item, I don't know if you got it or not, Ray, but I sent this morning that, has you been up and aware of that? This is flooding at Updike Lane, basically, and Route 11 in Cloverdale, across from the old travel town. Fascinating to me. I don't know how the water's getting in there through the embankment.
Well, I'm not either, and that's one of the questions I was going to ask you if we had the opportunity to discuss it. Where the water's coming through the embankment, that's actually Route 11, correct?
It is, yeah.
And it looked to me like, I couldn't see a culvert, it was coming out two locations, it looked to me like it was piping through the embankment somehow.
That's what it looked like to me, and I sent the sender that question this morning. Is that some kind of pipe through that embankment? Okay, well, I'll find out more about it, but it's...
Well, I was able to look at the email sender that sent it to you. I was able to find that person's name on the county GIS, so I could find the location. So at least now I know for sure where we're at, and what we can do is we take a look at that area and see what we've got in that and go from there. My understanding is that started about 2013.
That's what he said, yeah.
So, sometimes it takes a while for those problems to present themselves. But one of the things that we need to look at, particularly with that kind of situation where you've got that water piping through these things, is there any settlement? Because that's what happens. That water comes through there and erodes. Exactly. So we need to take a look at that location. That's what we'll do. Yes, sir.
Okay. The address is on the on the email, 1876 or something like that.
Yes,
It's on
yes,
there.
that's right. Yeah.
Well, do you need anything more from me on that?
No, sir. We'll pick it up from here. Yes.
Okay, any other comments for Ray? I do have a couple things I'd like to say. I appreciate your responsiveness to the issue of the culverts on Blue Ridge Drive and also on Mountain Pass Road. And I know they're a mess, and I really appreciate you coming out and looking at those and doing what you can. Another one, you sort of made me a hero out of the one over in Stratford Park, the one I just actually go by and look at it.
Yes, sir.
But you sent somebody over, they put the gravel down, fixed it. That guy called me back. I mean, he was a happy camper. So I appreciate that. You made a big impression on him, so I thank you for that. As I said before, if you have anything in my district that you want me to meet you and go out with, be glad to do that. There was one more down on the back end of the road down behind the food line, where that lady wanted to get some rock put up on the bank back there where it was flooding. Did you guys have a chance to go down and look at that?
No, sir. Is that on Welch's Run?
Yeah.
No, I have not heard that yet.
I had sent it in. I've got her name and her address and everything, but she first of all wanted to make that another thoroughfare through there for people that live in there. Of course, can't do that. But then when it had that big downpour, a lot of water come through there, and she said it was just within a foot of the back door. So she was just asking me to get some of those big rock out there to help prevent that. She would appreciate it.
All right. Did that come to me or to Ashley or to the system? I'm not sure, Mr. Martin. I've seen that.
Well, I thought I'd send it to you.
Man.
I can get it to you again.
And sir, if I missed that, my humble apologies. If you'll send it to me again, I'll definitely work on that.
As absent-minded as I've been, it could have been me.
That'd be great. I'll definitely take a look at it.
Okay.
I got two things.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for putting up the plaques up there on the bridge in Eagle Rock.
Yes, sir.
Got 3 calls from the families, so they very appreciative. I did tell them that we will have a public something or other later on after all
Okay, anything else? All right, thank you, Mr. Barney. We really appreciate how VDOT is working with us to take care of some of these problems.
And next
And
month,
if you need anything from us, you just give us a call.
next month, you're doing a cheesecake.
Yes, Mr. LaRue has reminded me that next month that I'm bringing a cheesecake of my choice. So next month be prepared. My personal favorite, now I do a plethora of cheesecake. I've done key lime, I've done lemon, I do chocolate and plain in the same cheesecake. I do birthday cheesecake. I just do cheesecake because I like cheesecake. But my favorite is cappuccino, and that's what I'll bring for the.
Can we have that machine at the bridge?
The shapes are a little more difficult than the actual cheesecake.
You do plain cheesecake.
Oh, plain cheesecake. Oh, Mr. Swan, I've made so many plain cheesecakes.
It gets boring, doesn't it?
Oh, Lord have
No, it
mercy.
never gets boring.
You can tell that he's eating a lot of it.
Yes, absolutely. But if cappuccino isn't your, oh, they're delicious.
It's Captain's choice here.
Oh, fantastic. Yes, sir.
We'll look forward to it.
All right, great, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Barney. Next, we'd ask Mr. Cody Sexton if he would come forward and talk to us about a resolution for the county smart scale applications.
Yes, sir. And before I get going, I need to take full responsibility and apologize for Mr. Barney's attire. We were having some technical difficulties, and I called him and asked if he could come post haste to present to you all. He said, well, I'm not dressed for it. So,
Now let's complain to King.
but he'll bring a crow next time. Good afternoon, members of the board. Part of the biannual smart scale application process involves the Board of Supervisors being asked to formally support the projects proposed by the county. In addition to the project applications that are listed in your packet today from the county, we are also asking that you support one project being applied for by the Roanoke Valley Allegheny Regional Commission, and then a project being applied for by Roanoke County, which directly impacts not only many of the traveling public in Botetourt County, but actually does come into the county ever so slightly. So in the agenda item are the 4 projects that are listed, and I would just like to run through those very quickly. The first project listed is the Route 220 Super Street Improvement Project. This is a repeat project from the 2018 cycle that builds a series of arc cuts on Route 220 between the Kroger at Commons Parkway and Cobble Road. What this does is it limits the crossover traffic in the road on 220 and allows for better through movement of the traffic along that road to help mitigate some of the congestion and safety issues of that cross traffic. This application scored very well in 2018. It didn't score well enough to get funded, so therefore we're bringing it back. And the Roanoke Valley Transportation Planning Organization, which Mr. Martin now chairs and Mr. Clinton also serves on, has provided $3 million to offset this total cost of about 7.5. So we feel that this is probably our highest priority and strongest application for this project, since so much of the work has already been done and we have that large chunk of money already supporting the project. The second project is the US Route 460 Laymantown Road intersection improvement. This would build a right turn lane on westbound US 460 onto Laymantown Road. It would also improve that culvert and bridge on Laymantown Road at the intersection in order to sort of expand that intersection and expand its function. It would improve some of the safety issues that have currently existed in the intersection, and then some that could happen with the construction of Colonial Elementary School off of Laymantown Road. There's some concern about the increased bus traffic and just in general increased traffic using that intersection, and this project could help mitigate that in the future. At the time of putting the agenda packet together, didn't have a final cost estimate on that. As of this afternoon, in current year dollars, that project is about $5.5 million as proposed. So we'll apply for it and put it forward, but that one is somewhat more of a toss-up based on the scoring guidelines. The third project, which the Roanoke Valley Allegheny Regional Commission is applying for, is the I-81 northbound safety improvements project. This is between 167 and 169, where the Arcadia S-curves. As you all know, there have been a number of safety incidents in this area over the years, especially involving tractor trailers or inclement weather. And so this has been a major point of concern for the entire region and the traveling public. This project would provide some slight realignment of the curves. It would adjust some of the banking of the curves and provide some high friction pavement to help improve friction, improve grip of traveling, to help mitigate some of those weather concerns as well. This project is going hand in hand with a project set to go to construction this summer on the southbound side. That would be working on the southbound curves and the pavement on that side. That project was approved a number of years ago and is going to construction now. I apologize, I do not have a final cost estimate for that project from the Regional Commission. Lastly, the Roanoke County project is for the intersection at US Route 460 and alternate US Route 220. So that is Bonsack intersection. It's currently a T-shaped intersection of traditional use. They're looking to improve that to what is called a super green T. So that would allow for continuous flow of traffic on 460 on one side while improving the function of the intersection overall. In order to accomplish this and provide for increased interconnectivity, they're proposing connecting Kingsman Road, which is the road that travels behind Bonsack Baptist Church, to Avery Road, which is in the Jack C. Smith Industrial Park. That would be a very small connection, but because it does rest in Botetourt County, they're asking for your support for that project. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise,
I just wanted to remember, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, sir, go ahead, that's with any questions.
You said this is biannual. It seems like seems like we're approving this particular document monthly almost. What's the deal?
Yes. So it is now a biannual process. When the process began, it was annual, and they've now lengthened it as, quite frankly, as they ran out of money. They needed to expand that process to every 2 years. So the way the cycle works, in even numbered years, we provide applications, and then in the odd numbered years, the CTB takes the applications under consideration for funding. So in the last cycle, which this may be what you're referencing, in the last cycle, we asked for a resolution of support in 2018 for the application, but then once we had a successfully scoring project, we came back and asked you all for a second resolution of support in 2019 for that project, for the one that had moved forward. So it really is very dependent on the state cycle.
It hasn't changed that.
No, not this cycle.
Yeah, Mr. Sexton is, I believe you're still the chair of the Transportation Technical Committee.
The immediate past chair.
Immediate past, close enough, immediate past chair. But he's done a great job on that and done a lot trying to get some of this stuff in Botetourt County to go through the system and to be approved, so we appreciate that. We have a resolution, it's in your packet, of support for the 2020 Smart Scale project application. We need to give a recommendation on that. Do I hear a motion to approve? We have a motion by Ray, second by Dr. Bailey to approve this resolution. All in favor, say aye. Aye. And all opposed? Okay, the motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sexton. Next item of business, item 16, Drew Pearson. It's a public hearing on a request from Jerry and Ray Johnson and Newman and Virginia Bennett to vacate 2 underdeveloped alleyways adjacent to Flat Road, State Route 703 in Iron Gate. Mr. Pearson, it's all yours.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. As you mentioned, this is a request from the applicants to vacate a portion of a 60-foot right-of-way as well as a 13-foot alleyway. It is shown on a plat that was prepared by Best Surveying dated March the 20th, 2015, and revised on March 24, 2020, and included in your agenda package. The subject properties are located within the agricultural residential AR use district, and no improved streets have been constructed within the right-of-way or alley being requested to be vacated. Historically, the unimproved right-of-way and alleys have been maintained by adjacent property owners and simply used as part of their yards. It appears that at the time the right-of-way was platted by the Iron Gate Land and Improvement Company, the county did not have a subdivision ordinance. Therefore, in order for the right-of-way to have been accepted by the public, the county would have had to either accepted the right-of-way by a resolution or to have exercised dominion or control over the right-of-way and alley. It doesn't appear that either one of these things have occurred, but however, in an abundance of caution, the board is being requested to abandon and vacate the right-of-way and alley at this time. So if the board does approve the ordinance to vacate the alley and right-of-way, these areas are proposed per the plat to just be incorporated into the adjacent property owner and the applicant's properties that already exist. The right-of-way and the alley that are proposed to be vacated do front directly on those properties, and no legal access will be taken away from these or any other parcels should the applicant's request be approved. Both of their properties would still have direct access to State Road 703 or Flat Road. So at this time, I would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, any of the members of the board have any questions for Mr. Pearson? So we do have to have a public hearing on this, is that right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. This time I'm going to open the public hearing. Mrs. Fink, do we have anyone to speak?
No, sir.
Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. And we'll discuss this. We need to agree to abandon and vacate this property and approve the ordinance. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Do we have any discussion among the board members? Do I have a motion to approve this request?
So moved.
Motion by Dr. Bailey, second by Dr. Scott Horn to approve. Any question on the motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you, sir. It is approved. Okay. Next agenda item is agenda item number 17. Jim, you've been waiting, haven't you, buddy?
No.
You want to talk to us about the Colonial Elementary School?
We had a little problem getting a presentation on the screen, so I just made some copies of a picture that I want to go over with. It's a good presentation of the school. I know you probably got some on your phones last week. We had trouble getting a flyover. I just throw on the screen there.
Mr. Chairman, Board, thanks for letting me speak to you today about the school. As you can see with this picture, there's a lot of things are covered, a lot of bricks are on. We laid the last of the structural block this week. We've got structural roof on most all of the school, and some of the buildings you see they got the blue roof, those are metal roofs, and that has the insulation, and that's a covering, so they are, everything's been dried in. The building to your far left, that's the classroom B area. That's going to be for the older children, 4 or 5 years old. That building has all the air conditioning in it. It has all the electrical in it. All the interior walls are done. The doors are up. The walls are painted. So pretty much that building, what we have to do is we have to put in the ceiling, the ceiling on it. The other section in the front, large silver building, to your right, that's the larger classroom area, C and D, and that's where we have our pre-K, our first, our second, and our third grade. We're putting in the air conditioning units right now. Most of the interior walls are in. Most of the plumbing's in since it was put into the slab area. We're putting in the electrical and that right now. The area in the center where you see the white blocks that are laying, that's your gymnasium. It's mostly finished. We still got to run the air to it. We've got the roof on it. The cafetorium is in the back. That's the blue roof with the white patch on it. We've got all the interior partition walls in that. The other area is your media room that has the blue roof on it. We just finished up all the framing of the interior walls on that. And the administration is a long one in the front, and we're about halfway through with the interior walls on that. So right now, what we're doing is we're finishing the inside. We still have some roofing to do where you see the blue on the roofs, but everything has a roof on it. Everything is dried in. B is painted and ready to go. C, we're getting real close to that. We still got to finish the ductwork, but all the plumbing is in the building. The water is run to the school. We've had the water on in some of the areas already. We have one hydrant left to do in the front, and that'll complete all the water on the school. And to your far left, the area B I showed you, we're actually doing the finish grade on that right now so we can get the parking lots in. So every day it's changing. It's been going really well.
And that thing looks like a spaceship Enterprise. Sit out.
Well, the thing about this is, and I know that everybody would be interested in this, if you go to where the blue roof that has a white square on, and you can see where the auditorium is at, right there, there's a hallway that goes down to one classroom to your left, and there's a hallway that goes down to the large classroom on your right. And that center area is where the principal and everybody's going to be. So this school is to where if they step into that center area, they look down one hallway directly to the older students, and they can look down one hallway to where the younger students are at. So it's in the center, it's a line of sight all the way through the school. So what it does is it means that it's easy to see what's going on, and it's easy to get to each section of the school. So it's a well-built school in that everything is centralized right in the center where the administration is at.
I don't know if you mentioned it or not, but has the gas lines been completed to the school yet?
Roanoke Gas was out today. We know that the gas line is up Welch's Run, and they still have some more to do on 460, but they were out today to do the siding to run the gas line into the back of the school. So the water line's there, and we're waiting for AEP to reset the pole. So, and the conduit from Murray all the way to the main room and back where the power comes in, all the conduits in, water lines are in, we're just waiting for the gas to get put in, and it shouldn't be easy. They're going to trench it around through the back, it'll be a 2-inch gas line.
And once the gas line is in there hooked up to the school, anyone in the neighborhood as long as that line can hook up the gas off. So
yes, I actually spoke to, I believe it was Mr. Booth the other day, and he said they were very happy that they've been getting a lot of people calling in that want to be hooked up on it. So the neighborhood loves it because they're getting natural gas. And he said they've had a pretty good response on people that have learned about it, but not natural gas.
Well, that's great. We appreciate the information you brought us. Any of the members of the board have any questions for Mr. Whitten or any comments?
You know we're doing good when we're painting the walls.
And Absolutely. Well, you practically live over there, hadn't you?
Yes, I got
Your wife shaking her head, yes.
I've got a little trailer there at the bottom that I see.
Kind of give you a break from it, man. Well, we appreciate all the work you've done.
It's been 2 years now. We're going to get there, and I'm looking at the timeline. We were today sweeping the floors because we had a site visit from the architect, so we were cleaning everything up. So we're down to the point where we can actually clean everything up. So we're good.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
We're looking for the next project for you.
My wife says that I'm not allowed to retire for the next 5 years.
All right.
We'll find something.
Agenda item.
You want to continue the party?
Next agenda item number 18, consideration of request from Greenfield Meadows LLC to advertise for a public hearing on proposed amendments to the comprehensive plan's future land use, sewer and water maps. Mr. Drew Pearson, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This item is a consideration of a request to advertise for a planning commission public hearing to consider amendments of the Botetourt County Comprehensive Plan that would amend the future land use map and the sewer and water infrastructure map for parcels identified as 87-95 and 87-96, and those parcels are located along Edsel Road. This was owner-initiated by Greenfield Meadows LLC on behalf of Elizabeth Ann DeMooney Murray and Michael and Belinda Amos. The applicant is requesting, stated in their application that the purpose of the request was in support of a rezoning of properties to the traditional neighborhood T&D zoning use district, which has been submitted, the application for the rezoning. It's not been considered complete at this time. That would be for a T&D mixed-use development. So when you look at the zoning ordinance for T&D, it does state that the T&D zoning should be planned in areas designated as medium to high density upon the future land use maps. So that's the purpose for the comprehensive plan amendment for the future land use map, to be consistent with that map. When you look at the current designations in place, there are 2 tracts of land, as mentioned. Those tracts consist of about 26 acres that are already in the medium density residential future land use designation, but the remainder of the area is in the rural low density residential designation on the future land use map. The T&D zoning code section does say that there needs to be a minimum of 75 acres minimum district size in order to be able to apply for T&D zoning. So the comprehensive plan amendment would be necessary to apply for T&D on any portions of the property. So when we come to the comprehensive plan amendments and the future land use map in particular, the Code of Virginia requires that a traffic impact analysis be completed when there's proposed changes to the future land use map that would increase density that would impact the road systems. So that's the purpose of the traffic impact analysis, or sometimes we call it TIA. The attached traffic impact analysis that was included in your agenda is based upon that T&D development, which is proposed to contain approximately 175 single-family residential units, 618 multifamily residential units, and along with 70,000 square feet of commercial and retail space. So it is a mixed-use development. The results of the original traffic impact analysis completed by the applicant's engineer indicated that traffic specifically at the intersections of Route 220 and Catawba Road would be adversely impacted by the proposed development. VDOT's review of the TIA resulted in comments and some questions. So at that time, the board did table this matter till today to give the applicant an opportunity to satisfactorily address all of VDOT's comments and to provide solutions to address the noted traffic impacts. The traffic impact analysis has been since amended To address VDOT's comments, and VDOT has actually issued their letter of concurrence, so they agree with the findings that are included in the traffic impact analysis. In order to mitigate the traffic impacts that would result from the proposed project, the TIA recommends several significant changes to current road network in the area of the signal at Route 220 and Catawba Road, the intersections of Valley Road and Route 220, and the intersection of Catawba Road and Edsel Road. The proposed solutions in the TIA are directly related to the request to increase development density for the areas shown on the future land use map, and also aimed at amending, of course, the comprehensive plan to extend service for water and sewer to the area, hence the request to amend the water and sewer map. Without that, they would not be able to extend the water and sewer, which you couldn't do that kind of density without. So in looking at just a couple key features that I took away from looking at the traffic impact analysis, it talks about approximately 90% of the traffic generated from this development would typically leave and go out and probably end up going through that Catawba and 220 road intersection. It only anticipates approximately about 10% of the traffic from the development that will go north, say on Edsel Road, up to Blacksburg Road. So the majority of the traffic is anticipated to go that direction. It did take into account several key intersections, as mentioned. And what it did was it kind of looked at some thresholds that would not necessarily necessitate the mitigation of the traffic impacts. And those thresholds were at Route 220 and Catawba Road. If there were only 70 single-family and 95 multifamily units built as part of the project, then the traffic impact analysis says the mitigation would be required. They also went as far as saying that, well, that could also be the equivalent of 135 single-family units. No more than that would not necessitate the requirement for the mitigation, or 215 multifamily units. At Catawba Road and Edsel Road, then the impacts weren't, they had to have more density to be able to warrant the mitigation of the traffic impacts. And at Catawba Road and Edsel Road, the traffic impact analysis stipulated that, well, there could be as many as 175 single-family homes, 618 multifamily homes, and 34% of the commercial before mitigation of the traffic impacts would be warranted. It did take a look at Route 220 and Lee Road intersection, which concluded that, well, mitigation was really already currently needed there. So any level of increases from the density and traffic from the proposed neighborhood would only add to that. They also took a look at, but didn't really include in their numbers. They made a suggestion that, it would be a good idea to look at Edsel Road connecting to International Parkway in some fashion. They felt like that would be something that would alleviate traffic impacts along the other corridors, because there's an expectation that if some of this were workforce housing, that you may have people that worked in Greenville, in the industrial park, that would currently have to go around and up 220 to get there versus having a direct route. But that was not included in the numbers, but that is a suggestion that came out. So what I did then next is I really got to looking at, just briefly, once we trip those thresholds, then what do those mitigation factors look like? And at Route 220 and Lee Road, there again, it's already basically like it needs to be done now. But one thing that the traffic impact analysis took into consideration is what that mitigation might be. And it really looks at an intersection that would be converted into like an R-cut configuration, which is some of the things that we've been talking about with the Super Street and the Smart Scale along that US 220 corridor. But as Cody mentioned earlier, that kind of is in the area of Kroger up to Catawba Road. It doesn't really go necessarily north of that. So this would be an R-cut configuration that is mostly proposed. They did look at a traffic signal also at that Glebe Road intersection, but they really didn't feel like the traffic volumes would warrant the traffic signal. So the R-cut would probably be what would alleviate some of the congestion at Glebe Road and 220. When it came to the 220 Catawba Road intersection and Route 220 Valley Road, they kind of lumped that together a little bit because it's just right there together. And some of the things that they really began to talk about at that particular location was also an R-cut, which perhaps would work into some of that same, the Super Street with the smart scale. It would prohibit U-turn movements from the northbound left turn lane to Route 220 there at the Valley Road, and redo some of that to increase some stacking, things of that nature. They looked at taking the left-hand turn lane coming out of Catawba Road and actually making that two right-hand turn lanes going back toward the interstate. And then if the R turn was around that Valley Road area, then if you were going northbound and you were coming out Catawba, you would actually take a right on US 220 and do the R cut to go back north toward Greenfield or Fincastle. So we did look at a lot of those things. So once you get those thresholds, which there again, the one that was the first one that we came to was the Route 220 in Catawba Road was the 70 single family and 95 multifamily with no commercial. Then the development would warrant the improvements or the traffic impacts to be mitigated all the way up at US 220 and Catawba Road. So, they looked at the possibility if the R-cut and the other improvements were done, how that might impact Catawba Road and Azalea Road. They didn't propose any changes to the intersection at Catawba and Azalea, but they recognized that some of the possible impacts from that R-cut out on 220 and those movements, if it calls backups, it could increase some of the cut-through traffic on Azalea to get back out to 220. So, there was those impacts at the different intersections. One thing that staff had kind of requested of the applicant was while the TIA talks about what impacts there are and how they might be mitigated as a result of the development, we didn't really get anything from the applicant on their thoughts of how that mitigation actually occurs. In other words, who would be responsible for that mitigation, how that would take place. So they may be able to speak to that more if it were pleased the board to hear from the applicant. I know they addressed you a little bit earlier today, and so they are here in the audience. And this time I will be happy to take any questions that you have.
Any comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, sir.
So Drew, I'll wait for this to not light up. So what I was wondering, in all these changes and mitigations, who has the funds? Do they have the funds to promote those changes, such as the lights or the traffic patterns, things like that?
Well, I think that's a little bit of an unknown question. In one of our conference calls, there was some mention of participation by the applicant, but it really it wasn't a topic that was specific to the discussion. And that's why staff had asked, on a couple of occasions, if the applicant had some information they wanted us to include in the agenda today. They would have to better answer that. But staff doesn't have any indication of what level of participation or whether the applicant is proposing to do all of the mitigation themselves.
Okay.
Mr. Hussein, Ilan is still here. If you want to come back down and speak, Mr. Ilan, could you come down and maybe you can answer some of these questions? Sure.
If I may, while we're waiting, if this does occur, we're going to probably have an increase in the amount of population in that area, of course, and that means that we probably increase the amount of rooms available in Greenfield, if that's true. And we have an overflow in, just looking at the school system, I'm just trying to figure out, how much of an impact outside of just putting a house there, what does that mean for the area and how does that happen? So it's a little bit bigger than just by putting in a pipe, by putting in some sewer, but putting widening the road or putting in a traffic light. I think what we need to look at also is how is this impacting the educational system for the schools and things like that, and financially.
Yeah, as part of the rezoning application component of the request, which again, I mentioned, we do have an application that was submitted. With the T&D zoning designation, when somebody requests that, the ordinance sets out very specific guidelines on what kind of submittal needs to be included with the application, and it's a very site-specific plan with a considerable amount of information. So at this time, when we got the application in, we did deem the application incomplete. So we don't really have enough information in yet to really be able to analyze that from a staff perspective on the rezoning side. But of course, the school system is always contacted once we get a complete application on the rezoning side, and we would certainly get their input on any impacts that they would anticipate as a result of the kind of density that is being proposed.
I think a couple of years ago when we had another area that we were looking at, the school superintendent, I remember correctly, said that they would figure at the school about 1.6 to 1.8 children per family. And new families coming in according to the amount of money that they make.
Right. And that sounds about right. There is a different calculation that the schools use. They don't calculate as much or as much student population for apartment units as they do the single family units. So you do have a lot more apartment units in this particular request so far. Now, that's always subject, the request is subject to change because we don't have a complete application. But what has initially been proposed and what the traffic impact analysis was based on, you have a lot more apartments than you do single family.
Anything else, Dr. Scott?
I think let's hear it.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman and board, is there any particular order you would like me to address questions or comments?
No, I mean, that just, as far as the funding that is necessary for the roads and improvements and things like that, has that been set up? Do you have the funding available?
Yes, so I think that's a very good question, and I think to preface that, what I'd like to follow up on Mr. Pearson's comment earlier, with this application, this is to amend the comprehensive plan to allow medium density, which is almost a prerequisite for a T&D type development. As we did our first draft of the T&D development and submitted it to the county, and we've had several discussions with the staff and kind of going back and forth. Our goal is to create this middle-income housing, as I mentioned earlier, to best facilitate the need of the community. And as we all know, that's kind of very visible through the COVID-19 crisis. It's almost like a moving target, and the dynamics changing, and we've seen that in Roanoke quite visibly as I've been here last 24, 25 years in Botetourt County and Roanoke area. 15 years ago, we had very minimal apartment housing. Most of the housing was single family or maybe duplexes. And in the last 4 or 5 years, we've seen a huge growth of apartment housing, and some of it which I own and we do for other clients of ours. And it's very well used and become a good fabric of the community. So I think our goal was trying to figure out what would fit on this property the best to help and facilitate the needs of Greenfield industrial park, the middle income families that are looking for homes that are $150,000 to $220,000. We're not sure what that target is, but we are hoping that's a mix of single family and multifamily. So coming back to the traffic study, as you look at the traffic study, for example, one of the intersections, that's the Edsler Road and the Powell Road intersection, the traffic study basically says, hey, you can do 175 single-family units, 618 multifamily units, and 34% of post-commercial use, which is about 23,000 square feet of the 70,000 that was in the initial sketch for the development. If you do that, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to do a roundabout, you don't have to do any improvement. So, I think with this traffic study completed, the burden would get back on us and our team to say, hey, do we really need to do anything larger than that, or should we stay within those parameters and maybe really look at the development from a team design point of view, come up with a solution that would minimize the traffic impact. But if the traffic impact would be needed, such as an RFP, something like that, there are state programs that allow state to work with developers where there's private-state partnership, and the developer would pay a certain portion of it, and the state would pay a certain portion of it, and that's something that our traffic engineer has discussed with some of the state staff and looking at the possibilities. I think the process would be that the board would consider amending the comprehensive plan to allow a medium density in one half or the upper part of this property, so the whole property is allowed for medium density. And then for us to go back to the drawing board with the current market scenario and the changing dynamics and say, hey, and with a very detailed comprehensive traffic study in our hand, say, okay, do we do the same plan that was submitted earlier, or do we amend that plan a little bit and maybe have more single family, less partners, kind of change the dynamics of it a little bit, and then, certainly look at in places where we would need to do traffic improvements and where we don't. And if the traffic improvements are needed, the funds would certainly be available from the developer side, whatever the state would not be able to cover.
Any other question?
I'm reflecting on that. I'm not sure I understood what you said just now about the upper part and the lower part and the medium density. And so were you, and I couldn't hear everything, but were you proposing to change what we have before us now in terms of where the higher density occurs?
So I think Mr. Pearson kind of explained that earlier. If you look at the property, there's a creek that runs right there, kind of below the creek, if you would call it south of the creek, and if I make speak for Mr. Pearson, is currently in the comprehensive plan as medium density. Okay. What's north of the creek is currently in the comprehensive plan as rural low density, if that's the correct terminology. So essentially, all we're asking is, hey, half of the property, or more or less, a certain percentage of the property, is already medium density. Allow us to make the remaining half medium density so that we can have a comprehensive plan that would be cohesive on one use of the property. So right now, the land use is two different land use on the property, which is not unusual. It's, it's done at a very, very bird's eye view scale on a land use. The line is drawn kind of through the property. So what we're saying, hey, let us make it medium density, and what medium density is, as Mr. Pearson has explained to us before, there's several different ways you can do in a medium density type development. We can have R3 type development, we can have TND type development, and we're certainly looking at a TND as an option when we go to rezoning, but today is not the consideration of rezoning. I think rezoning would be another application that the board would get at a different time, and then we can get into the nitty-gritty of how we plan the roads, what is the exact amount of traffic that comes out of this development. Right now, all we're asking is, hey, can we convert this remaining upper half to make it as the lower half of the property. It's still the same property, and I think that's our only request. But we certainly, based on Mr. Pearson's recommendation, we did the traffic study, which typically you would do this type of comprehensive traffic study at a rezoning application stage. The reason we're doing it is because we are amending the comprehensive plan, so it makes us more responsible to do this analysis, so that when we get into the rezoning, it doesn't give us too many surprises. We say, oh, we didn't know it's going to have an impact on Etzler and Cabo and 220. So going into the next step, we are much better prepared today than we were 3 months ago, because we have a very comprehensive study, and we know that there's no point in us having more than 175 single family, 618 multifamily, and 23,000 square feet of commercial space on Etzler and Cabo, because if you do that, we're going to have to do a roundabout based on this traffic study, and there's no reason to incur the cost of a roundabout, and maybe even slow the traffic down that comes from our rolling cement plant, which could be a concern for certain businesses in certain part of the community. Now, there's a high need and demand that many businesses have shown us and talked to us in Greenfield Industrial Park, saying, hey, it would be nice for our workforce to be able to live in Botetourt County. We would like to see housing that is cost-effective, that's middle-income housing. So this is a great idea. We support it. We're all for it. But certainly, we don't want to create congestion for the traffic. And as Mr. Pearson mentioned, with the International Parkway cutting across, if you got 700 units or 500 units or 300 units or 150 units, and these units are occupied by people that work in Greenfield Industrial Park, now at 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock, those people are not getting on 220 and going towards 581 and 81 and creating congestion, because they're just taking International Parkway or another road to come back to housing that's close to their workplace. So we, in a way, help reduce the traffic. And one of the reasons we could not get that included in this study, because that's not a VDOT road. That's not a public road, so they cannot do code traffic analysis or PIA for a road that's not in public use. But if the county decides to make that a public road and that become a request for consideration at a certain point, that certainly can be added on into this traffic study and say, hey, what if this road is open and the traffic actually comes back to the International Parkway, back towards Etzler, back and forth? How does that reduce the traffic and what improves the traffic? So, certainly this is work in progress, going in the right direction. We've gotten a lot of good feedback from VDOT. We have gotten a lot of good feedback from traffic engineers, and we feel definitely that this is a great place, a great site to do a development. What we're not 100% sure is the density of that development at this point. We will do further study on the density of the development. It is going to be medium density. That's why we're requesting medium density. So medium density could be as much as 15,000 square feet on a lot, but single-family homes, or it could be a mix of single-family homes with apartments, or it could be a mix of single-family homes with apartments and some commercial space. And I think that's our next phase to work with this piece.
Comments?
Yes. So, maybe for both of you, at what point, I guess, through the process do we start to understand the public service needs of such a development? Schools, fire, EMS, Dr. Scott already alluded to the schools. Of course, the roads obviously have been the topic of most conversation here today, but there's a lot more to it. So, changing the comprehensive plan requires us to understand all of those things, right? So, weigh in on that if you don't mind.
If I may answer on the school part of it, we met with the school board staff and kind of looked at what has been in their master plan for Greenfield Elementary School. And they showed us on their master plan where the future expansion had been planned in the early stages when Greenfield Elementary School was built. So there are 2 wings that can be added on. So they have kind of a planned expansion if the growth needs it. Certainly, didn't discuss all the details of the budget and how much funding they would get from state per student and how that would be offset by the tax revenue, but there's a whole matrix of how this type of development would help the tax base, but it certainly adds costs for the county as well to facilitate the needs for student education. But certainly there is room there on Greenfield site for expansion of this program.
And if I could just add, I mean, Supervisor Bailey, you mentioned the focus on the traffic impact analysis. And that's predominantly because there is a state code requirement for a traffic impact analysis at the time of the comprehensive plan amendment of the future land use map that would envision that increased density that would impact the road systems. Certainly, if a comprehensive future land use map were to be amended and the entirety of the property, the 2 parcels was then medium density residential. We do have a request for a T&D rezoning. We've got that application in the office. That's not to say that the applicant may adjust that application to something different by the time it gets to public hearing phase, but that is what they started with. So that's what the traffic impact analysis was then thus based on. So just to give you a little bit of perspective, in the medium density residential, the applicant could come in with a request. If that were to be approved, the T&D request that they have submitted would be consistent with the future land use map. So that's always a plus, because if obviously if a rezoning requests were inconsistent, then with the vision that the board has through the comprehensive plan, then it's probably not something that you would want to approve. So it's always good if the rezoning request is going to be consistent. So under the medium density residential, the T&D would be consistent. That's the only district that could come in that would actually involve what I would consider apartments or multifamily product. So the T&D would allow that. That's the only district that could come in and be consistent with the future land use map that would involve some level of commercial development as well. So the other districts that might be applied for under the medium density residential, an applicant could come in with a R1 request, an R2, an R3 request, residential. The R4 multifamily request must be, to be consistent with the future land use map, would have to be in an area designated on the future land use map as high density residential. So if we don't go T&D with the rezoning, then that would eliminate basically the commercial and the apartment component. Under the R3, you can get some density of townhomes for sale type product. So it is possible to do that, and then some of your zero lot line, other single family residential, but it's predominantly a residential zoning designation. But keep in mind, we're talking about 108 acres, I believe it is. A little over 108 acres in the 2 tracts. And, at the threshold where the traffic impact analysis is looking at there being the equivalent of 135 single-family homes alone, it's calling for there to be impacts at US 220 and Botetourt Road that would, once we go over that threshold of 135 single-family units, it would call for mitigation of those impacts. And that was a series of different things that would happen at that intersection, including reconfiguring that intersection with Catawba Valley and being an arc cut and restricting some movements and things like that. At the point that there would be quite a bit more, which would be the 175 single family, 618 multifamily, 34% commercial. That's when it triggered the, once we exceeded that, it triggers the impacts to be mitigated at Exler in Catawba. And the traffic impact analysis then took a look at the traffic circle, the roundabout, as we're probably familiar with, as well as the possibility of a signal, which again, I don't think it looked like there would be enough volume to warrant the signal. So that would probably end up being a roundabout, along with the other things that it looked at. So that's kind of the reason why we focused a little bit more on the traffic impact analysis, because it is a state code requirement. And even if the board were to approve the amendments to the future land use map to medium-density residential, does not necessarily mean that you would be in agreement with a particular rezoning when it comes before you by a recommendation of the planning commission. That might substantially change, but this is just the starting point. And it's generally at that point of the rezoning request that the planning commission, all the external agencies such as the schools and everybody else starts weighing in on how the rezoning itself will then impact all of those facilities and infrastructure.
So how important is the retail part to your plan?
I don't think it's important at all. I think from a development point of view, what we're trying to facilitate is a development that addresses the need of the county and the community. And if driving from that part of our town and our county, and like I said, I live in Ashland Plantation, so I'm very familiar with the distances, driving to Food Line and the Dale Town Center is short enough, and we revisit it and say, we don't need to have an ice cream shop there, or a barber shop, or a little restaurant or service facility as part of this neighborhood. We take that out because that makes more sense to not have it there than we don't have it there. So I think it's really, from our perspective, it's all market driven. It needs to be a real world market driven solution that addresses the needs of the county, the needs of the commerce. You have Greenfield Ballpark, which has a lot of family, a lot of events happening up there. You have neighbors up there, and we've already done one community meeting where we had some negative comments, some positive comments. We kept on getting positive feedbacks for weeks and months after. Hey, when's the first house coming up? Can we put a contract on it? We applaud from it. You have to go through comprehensive plan amendment, rezoning, and then then maybe consider doing development at that point. So I think we have to find out, certainly you gentlemen as a board, but us as the development team and Mr. Pearson's team is what is in the best interest of the county and the people, what to develop there. And I think that's been our quest as developers, as architects, as people who care about the community. And we're trying to follow the process, and I think this is the process, first step in the right direction, saying, hey, do we need medium density up there, or should we keep it more rural and low density? And I think that's the dialogue we kind of had at this point. And our vision as a team has been, we have 1,500, 2,000 people working in Greenfield, and they get on 220 every morning, every evening. And I see it as I do my morning runs from Ashland Plantation into Greenfield, can't hardly cross that road because all those people are turning in. And if some of those people can stay locally, stay in the homes that are built right next to where they work, live, work, and play in the same area, you would have better quality of living. And I think that's been our quest. How we achieve that and reach that goal, whether we have commercial there or no commercial, we have less apartments, more single family, kind of depends on the market. I mean, with COVID-19 coming in, and if some of the apartment complexes that have been full in Roanoke in the last 7-8 years start having a decline in apartment rentals, and we start having empty apartment rentals, then the solution is not to do more apartments. Then the solution is to do more single family, because people are staying home more, and they get on Zoom, and they're working from home, and they're not going to the workplace, so they need larger living space. And if that's the solution, then that's the direction we need to take. So we need to revisit our model and say, hey, this is what we need to do. And I think, we have to work with the market dynamics, and that's the key.
Go ahead. I'm not sure it's we need to look at this thing on a large scale basis. And I think one of the things we've been doing here is getting wrapped around the axle of the details. And they have to come. They generally will come later, I would think. And that's sort of a preamble to what's bugging me about this whole thing. It just is, it just seems like the process is backwards. Both of you all sort of touched on why it is, but ordinarily I would think, we're kind of like whatever the logo is for the Department of Justice with the lady, the scales and the blindfold and all that. I mean, in an ideal world, that's what we would be. We're just evaluating, in this particular case, we're just evaluating a higher density in a particular tract of land. But if we take the blindfold off, we know what we're talking about here because this process is going back and forth and started kind of in the middle and gone to the end and started in the beginning. And we just know a whole lot. We're not blind. And Mr. Justice is not blind on this one. I'm sorry. So we all know a lot of details and we hear speculation about the impacts. And yeah, it's going to have an impact on traffic. I mean, I guess I'm less moved by that than maybe other people are. It's consideration, but like you said, Mr. Wong, you can adjust the sequence of your constructions to kind of accommodate some of those issues. The problem that I'm having is procedurally how much of that should we be taking into consideration when our purpose here is to approve or disapprove the idea of a public hearing to change the density, which is 2 or 3 steps ahead or really behind where we usually are at this stage. I'm not sure I said that right, but we would ordinarily be doing that without all the history that we know of this project and without all the input we've heard and so on. So it's just a different situation and it makes it very difficult. It makes it difficult also, I think, in terms of fairness to everybody, to our citizens, to the developer, to everybody. At what point we just face reality and come to grips with our own sense of this project. And I think each of us probably has an idea of what we think of the project. And personally, when I look at something like this, notwithstanding having a technical background myself, I don't tend to look at all these details. I mean, I just think you can get wrapped up in that and you can go back and forth, we can speculate and all that. And I just kind of look at it, and you sort of touched on this, Mr. Long. What's good for the county? Things the way you put it. I mean, I look at total value. Is it, does it have at least a modicum of support of the current residents who I think ought not to be foreclosed from this? I mean, they have a legitimate position to consider. Is it going to help? And that's the question to be answered, by the way, pretty easily. Does it pose risks? It does certainly for the developer, and I admire that at no end. It poses risk for the county too, so is it risky for the county? Is it good planning? Just some basic planning principles. Does this qualify as good planning? To put retail where we want to put it and put high density development or medium density development where we want to put it. And I got to tell you, it's not passing those tests for me. So I'm having a hard time with it. And yet the developer ought to have the opportunity to present his case. But if he does, I don't think it's going to pass anyway. So I got to say my inclination is let's be real with ourselves and fair to the developer. And at least if it were me, then I would say let's not proceed. I'm going to listen to others because I am jumping the gun a little bit. This is what we would ordinarily do 3 or 4 meetings from now for spending for the planning commission, but it's before us. We got to make a decision. And what's fair to the citizens, what's fair to the developer if the likelihood is it's not going to pass anyway. And my opinion, that's the light, I don't know about y'all. But if that made any sense, that's where I stand on it.
Anybody else? When I met with you some time ago, you showed me the plans. I liked the plans you showed me. And I said, how in the world is this going to work in this area? I think this plan would work good and somewhere else, but I'm not sure about this area over there. We're talking about the mitigation of Essler Road, Catawba Road, Blacksburg, and Valley. I don't think changing the comp plan will satisfy my concerns as far as the traffic coming through there. And I know the citizens in that area have voiced their opinion a number of times about, the traffic in and out those roads on the Route 220. There's no doubt that the traffic will increase. You know that 175 single dwellings and 670 some multi-family dwellings. And you also said that, well, maybe some of these inhabitants will use International Parkway. Well, how do we even know that they'll get a job in Greenfield, or if there's any jobs available over there? I mean, let's be realistic. I know that if they do get a job over there, they can use that. But if they don't, we've still got that large influx of vehicles coming out onto the road over there. 618 multi-families, yes. Again, I know some of the neighbors over there don't want high density or medium density over there. They like to, and we've already heard from some of them. That's why I'm saying that. But so I think Dr. Scott mentioned this, the unintended consequences such as schools and fire and rescue and different things like that, we would be looking at. So I'm not too sure that this is the right area for this type of development. I love your plan, but I'm not sure it's the right for this area over there. Anyone else?
I would just ask Drew, is your office in the process of reviewing the comprehensive plan? Is that where we are?
We are still working through a lot of the segments of the comprehensive plan, and the future land use map is something that our new planner has been taking the lead on, working on. So we are definitely reviewing the future land use map at this time. Hope to have something to bring forward before too long.
Like?
Yeah. I'm not sure myself on the timeline. That's one of the bad parts about being away from the office. I don't get quite as much of that cross impact on timelines.
And Nicole, can you speak to that, please?
And while Nicole's coming down, I just want to take an opportunity to remind you that there are two requests. One for an amendment to the future land use map and one for an amendment to the water and sewer map. Part of the property right now is in medium density residential. And if somebody wanted to apply for rezoning for medium density residential or something like an R3 or R2 in that area, they could only subdivide the property if public water and sewer could be extended to the site. So please keep that in mind. The comprehensive plan is the board's vision for that area, and what we're really talking about is simply your vision. You're envisioning it staying like it is, remote, more farm in nature, or if you do have a vision of maybe some single-family residential there, most of that would take, public water and sewer. So without that amendment to the future or to the map, water and sewer map in the comp plan, public water and sewer cannot be extended to the property. The Water Authority has looked at that site with the applicant and has indicated to the county that the property could be served potentially. So just wanted to point that out, and I'll turn it over to Nicole.
Thank you. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for your question and comments that you raised earlier. Very valid in the fact that all of the impacts of development go a long way in terms all of the different components of development land use within the county. And so to answer your question, we are in the process of working through those future land use map scenarios to bring them back in the fall. Also with water and sewer service mapping. So the comprehensive plan drives both the density requirements, it's your vision, as Mr. Pearson said, which is why the request to modify the comprehensive plan comes to you all to see if that is even a conversation to even place on a future public hearing agenda, because it does involve a lot of analysis, which we're currently working through the process of. So what we will do, and Peter has been working on a series of maps, which takes into account the housing study that was done previously, the last comprehensive plan amendment, which was the Gateway Crossing area, and the study before that, which established what the density and growth might look like for the county. We're taking those numbers and we're looking to see how much density do we need to accommodate. And then, once we have a base point, we can provide scenarios on where that density should go. So that's where we are. Those types of things will come in the fall. The other types of updates that the public will be able to weigh in on are community facilities mapping. Where do the community facilities need to go to match up with the growth that's occurred in the county? And again, that goes hand in hand with water and sewer as well. I hope that answered your question. Dr. Bell. Anything else?
Very good.
You said that there is a land board you could partner with VDOT for the mitigation at the intersections.
Yes.
Have you talked with VDOT? Are they willing to go into a partnership with you? Or
Yes.
you have
We've had conference calls and meetings with VDOT, and they discuss that there are funds available from the state for projects of this nature, and they would partner with the developer and do cost sharing with the developer on projects of this site. So they're certainly willing to do that. The application would have to be jointly made by the developer with the support of the county for any of these traffic improvements. And if I may add to it, I think, even though it's kind of like Mr. Clinton mentioned, it's putting the cart before the horse, we had looked at the development and kind of started looking at the design portion of the development. We have not finalized at this point if you're doing single family up there or doing 618 apartments. So even if the board decides to consider amending the comprehensive plan for medium density, certainly board will and the planning commission will have the opportunity to look at what that medium density may look like. And medium density could be half-acre lots, single-family homes up there. So the traffic study is showing the worst-case scenario that could be proposed on that site, or the highest density scenario that could be proposed on that site. But that doesn't mean that that's the scenario we will present as part of our rezoning application. We are in the early stages of that rezoning application, and are certainly willing to reduce the density to address the needs of the county and the residents and neighbors.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Nicole, if I understand it right, the comprehensive plan is being worked on presently to find out what our density may be necessary to meet each area. Am I correct? Are you saying that?
Yes.
So they are already working on this presently?
Yes.
That answers that. And one other question. Sorry. Have we worked with developers before with VDOT on this plan for the cost sharing? Do you know of any cost sharing we've done before previously with any developers?
I would say I do not, and I would just double check with Mr. Sexton up in the top, but I don't have a recollection of that.
Mr. Sexton, if I may, I apologize about bringing everybody in. We've got a whole county staff going to go help us out.
I'm just going to defer to Mr. Mormon.
Maybe you might want to go. I didn't hear that. So have we had any developers be working with the sharing costs with VDOT before? Have we seen this happen?
To my immediate knowledge, no, not on any kind of scale this large. It is fairly standard, of course, developers, build secondary streets, other roads internal to their development. The closest thing of an external development that we've had would have been that small intersection improvement at the Sheets,
right,
where I could follow up in 220, but nothing to the scale of this current development.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Well, the recommendation is to make a motion to take a vote in accordance with the action as outlined above. Now we have three choices that we can make. We can approve this request, we can deny this request, or we can table this request for consideration at a future meeting. There's no time limit for future consideration. So that's what we're looking at. You're a nice guy, but I'm just not totally convinced of this, myself. But I'm just one person on the board, but I just want to be honest with you. So do we have any one of the supervisors that would be interested in making a motion on one of those three choices?
Obviously, we need to, and we need to if we want to continue discussion. And for the reasons that I stated, overall, is it good for the county? Is it good for that neighborhood? I've got some serious questions about that. And again, I'm troubled about the fact that's not really what we're judging right now, but we're going to judge it. And this has been around long enough for us to be reasonably certain that nothing's going to happen within the contours of this proposal that's going to change. It's going to change it significantly in terms of normal good planning practice, in my opinion. So I will move for disapproval.
We have a motion to disapprove. Do I hear a second?
I'd second that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, any question on that motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion is disapproved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Sorry about that. That's why some of them go.
Yes, sir.
All right. The next request we have is item 19, consideration of a noise ordinance variance from Jeter Farm for a truck and tractor pull event on August 29th. Mr. LaRue.
Mr. Chair, board members, this is come around again for the Jeter truck and tractor pull event on their property, 1320 Mountain Joy Road in Buchanan. This event is scheduled for Saturday, August 29th, and is proposed to run from 6 until 10 p.m. What they have normally done is ask for the variance that would be after 10 o'clock if there was a weather delay or breakdowns or anything of that sort. It's been customary that this would end up being approved, and I know the sheriff and the fire chief have been involved in this. I think that the request would end up being to approve this for the August 29th, 2020 event. If you have any questions, we'll try to answer those.
Any questions, gentlemen?
Motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve and a second. Any question on the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, gentlemen. Item 20, Mr. Mormon, if you would come forward. Consideration of staff rankings of proposals for the Circuit Courthouse Conceptual Planning Study.
Good afternoon. As you're all aware,
This project has been going on for the last few months. The county issued an RFP for architectural and engineering services for a conceptual design study for the Circuit Courthouse and Fincastle. That evaluation team consists of Supervisors Bailey and Mr. Clinton, Judge Joe Branscombe, County Administrator Mr. LaRue, and myself, and Purchasing Manager Susan Tinser. The county received 6 proposals for this project. The evaluation team reviewed those and selected 3 firms to interview. Those interviews were held on July 17th, and at the invitation of the evaluation team, Mayor Smith of the town of Fincastle and also the clerk of the circuit court, Mr. Moore, participated in interviews. Again, those interviews were held with 3 firms. Following those interviews and discussion by the group has recommended a ranking for your consideration today. That's in your packet. You'll see a ranking of the 6 firms there. The way this process works, as laid out in the state code and the county's procurement manual, is that the county needs to approve a ranking, and upon approval of a ranking, negotiations are then conducted with the top ranked firm, which in this recommendation would be Architectural Partners. If negotiations culminate in a mutually agreed contract, then the county would enter into a contract with the firm, award that contract, and proceed with the work. If a contract cannot be negotiated with the top-ranked firm, then those negotiations would be discontinued. That firm would be eliminated for further consideration, and negotiations would be started with the number 2 ranked firm. And that process would continue either until a satisfactory agreement is reached, or if a satisfactory agreement could not be reached, then the RFP, all proposals would be rejected, and the RFP would be terminated, and the county would start the process over. So the committee is recommending that you approve the ranking that you have before you. One additional thing to that, in the course of the interviews and discussion by the interview panel, including the mayor and the clerk of court, it was recognized, and in fact some of the firms identified, the significance of this project to the town of Fincastle, to the overall impact of the town beyond just simply the courthouse and the courthouse square itself. And so there was discussion about possible design elements that could be considered in this project that would not only serve the interests of the courthouse and the related functions, but also help promote the larger interest and functionality and appeal, if you will, of the town and surrounding properties. So the committee discussed and would like to ask for authorization to consider those kind of design elements as well in their discussions with firms as they enter into contract negotiations. So with that, I'd like to ask Supervisors Clinton and David if they would have any comments for you to share about the experience and their thoughts on it. They in particular have been very helpful throughout this process, and Mr. Clinton with his experience in the A&E world in helping giving good feedback to the entire group, and really appreciate their support and assistance on this, as well as the judge and the clerk and the mayor, everyone in the effort.
I would say I think it was a good process. I think purchasing department did really well. I think our interview committee did. They were good firms, the ones we interviewed, and I think we got to the best one. And I think what makes this firm kind of different, other than the fact that they demonstrated a real collaborative approach to things, I think we all felt sort of real comfortable with them, and they made you kind of want to get roll up their sleeves and start working and coming up with concepts together with them. You know, they're just kind of an appeal to the group, I thought. But the other thing, and we should probably know this, we should know this, the principal firms selected, Architectural Partners, out of Lynchburg, small firm, I guess, that seemed pretty good. But they're teamed with a large specialist, judicial facility specialist firm, DLP, and they're more of a big city, large firm.
specialize. And, I just think it's a combination to have local interest and big city expertise. So that's one of the good things that fell out of it, I think.
I would just say, David, that we've been reaping the benefits of Supervisor Clinton's knowledge, and that's been very helpful. We're fortunate to have him in that process. And, this project has been talked about for a while. It's very important, a very necessary thing to happen. I'm glad that it's starting to move along a little bit and get some attention. And, I look forward to, the process moving forward at some point and being completed down the road. It'll be years, obviously, before that's finished. But getting the town involved has been a good thing, and I think they'll benefit, as the county will from this whole endeavor. So it's been a good process and a long way to go.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, sir.
I have a question. Steve, I know you've done this for many, many, many years and been in this process and bid, but I question having 6, because if we get to 4 or 5 and dropping the RFP on those, we got problems. Do you know what I'm saying? If number 1 doesn't want to do it, doesn't want to negotiate with us, number 2 doesn't want to negotiate with us, number 3. So what was the decision upon 6?
Well, I don't think there was a specific decision on 6. That was just the ranking based on the relative ranking of all the firms.
Okay.
So I don't think there was an affirmative decision that any of the firms were necessarily unqualified or disqualified. But to your point, if the committee got in a situation in negotiations where they negotiated with, let's say, the top firm and it didn't work out, and the second firm and it didn't work out, there's not an obligation to continue and to reach a contract with one of the firms, even going all the way down to the 6. At any point, the process could be stopped, and the county can make a determination and say, okay, this isn't going the way we need it to go. We're not satisfied with this. We're going to stop the process, and we're going to reject all proposals and start over.
Okay, so there were 6 firms. This is 6. I'm sorry.
Right.
So just to be clear, maybe we should just state how we went about this. Stop me if everybody already knows, but the RFP was put out, right? And we received applications from these 6 firms that were listed here. We went through a grading process. The people on the evaluation team of all 6 applications, independently, we each scored the applications. From that, the top 3 were chosen for interview. And those 3 firms came in a week ago Friday, right? And we interviewed them. Back to back. What was it, an hour each interview? Hour and a half. And after the interviews, we gathered and basically voted on the ranking of those 3. So that's how you ended up with 1 through 3, and then 4, 5, 6 were a matter of their grading system that we went through previously.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Well, if not, we have 2 recommendations. I'm going to make a motion to approve the ranking of proposals for the Circuit Courthouse plan study in response to RFP number 20-22756 as recommended. And we have a second to Dr. Scott Horn. Any question? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay. The second, I would make a motion to authorize the project evaluation team to negotiate and award a satisfactory contract pursuant to the terms and conditions of RFP number 20-22756 with architectural partners. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Morgan. And you might as well stay there with number 21. We have consideration of a memorandum of understanding between the county and the EDA for office space in Greenfield.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, I'll try to be as brief as I can. This is a matter that has a fair bit of history associated with it. I'll be happy to try to answer any questions you have about any of that, but I'll try to focus on the MOU in your packet as much as possible. So you have before you a draft memorandum of understanding between the Botetourt County Economic Development Authority and the County Board of Supervisors. This MOU is drafted and intended to be a short-term agreement between the county and the EDA that would be in effect and force from the time of its adoption until such time as a long-term lease would be negotiated between the EDA and the county for space in this building, which would also be simultaneous with a long-term, presumably with a long-term lease, a new long-term lease between the EDA and Virginia Western Community College for space that it will occupy and lease here, for the foreseeable future. So the intent of this MOU is basically just to memorialize the mutual responsibilities and privileges between the EDA and the county for this interim period that right now is targeted to be between now and the end of May 2021. It could extend somewhat beyond that, but that's the envisioned time frame at this period. And the MOU pretty much memorializes the terms and conditions as they currently exist. The county is responsible for maintenance and upkeep of the facility. The county will be responsible for utilities. The county will be responsible for janitorial services. The county would transfer the mobile buildings that it acquired and Virginia Western uses to the ownership of the EDA. And in return for that, the EDA would convey the rental money that it receives from the community college system, $345,000 to the county for this current year to offset some of those expenses that the county incurs. So in a nutshell, that's some of the key components of this MOU. The EDA acted on it probably 2 meetings ago. Friday. Last Friday? No, meeting before. Meeting before. So they have adopted it unanimously. Of course, it's been reviewed and approved by the county attorney. Be happy to try to address any questions you have about it.
How long is our contracts with BWCC?
So the Economic Development Authority's lease with the community college system expired the end of June, but they entered into an extension to go through May 30th, 2021, but with the provision that it could be extended longer than that if need be. And the reason for that extension is to allow time for us to work with the community college and come up with a design for a building addition to serve their needs in the future long term.
Thank you. Thank you. That's what I'm here.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Morgan?
No further questions. I would like to approve, make motion to approve that MOU.
Okay, we have a motion by Dr. Scott Moore to approve the tax memo and authorize the chairman to sign the document on the county behalf. Do we hear a second?
Second.
We got 2 seconds, sorry. Steve, I think you were first. All in favor, any question on the motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Mormon. I believe you've got the next one also.
Yes, sir. So this is simply a request for authorization to issue an RFP for design services for a building addition to this structure for the benefit of Virginia Western Community College. The county would administer that design process and ultimately the construction process for a building addition. The cost of the design and construction would be financed through the EDA. And so out-of-pocket costs incurred by the county would be reimbursed with the issuance of that financing. And so this is simply a request for authorization for that. And again, I'd like to thank Mr. Clinton for his help in drafting this RFP. Extremely helpful and beneficial. It's nice to have someone in his background and expertise on the board.
We're missing him.
He's going to have to get his old job back, isn't he?
In that case, if there's no questions, so moved.
Okay, we have a motion to approve, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Sloan. All in, without any question, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have county attorney, if he would come forward.
Well, I'm not the county attorney, but I will come forward.
Which item were you on?
Social justice.
Okay, okay, so it's got locked in the end, okay. We're the other hand,
We're
sorry.
That rude. Mr. Chair and board members, what I'd like to do is just do the introduction here, basically on the topic of social justice. As you know, during this time of social unrest, there were various discussions taking place associated with historical markers that, based upon some personal views, symbolize many things. For some, the views associated with certain historical names and markers seem to be painful reminders of the past, present, and future. For some, the same elements are viewed as history that cannot be erased. Discussions are taking place across the Commonwealth and the nation and localities as to how to work through the process and allow input of public opinion and to realize the sensitivity of the day. Botetourt is noted as the seedbed of the Republic and has always been viewed as a leader for other communities to emulate. The respect and character of our citizens have constantly shown through in history and will prevail into the future. It's noted that the Board of Supervisors are elected by the people as representatives to carry out the business of the county, and in this case, continue to add value to the good name of Botetourt County. At this point, Mr. Chair, I would, it would be pleasing to you, would end up asking Mark if he would come over as the legal counsel today. He's substituting for our normal legal counsel, Mike Lockaby, and would end up giving some legalities associated with historical markers from at this point.
Okay, thank you, Mr. LaRue.
Afternoon, Mr. Chairman. As you know, the recently ended General Assembly session was fast and furious with many changes occurring, and one of them was specific to the potential removal or relocation of historic monuments, specifically under Section 15.2, 1812 of the Code of Virginia. They set up a process by which local governments can either hear from the people via referendum and or simply move through a public hearing process. The referendum process is limited to being done prior to any public hearings. So if it is your wish to have a referendum on the issue of potentially removing any Confederate monument within the county, that would have to be your first step. Now, that will require getting the appropriate question on the ballot, working with your electoral lawyer to get that taken care of. But that is the process, an initial step, if you will, if you wish to have direct ability for the citizens of the county to vote essentially on the issue. If you choose not to do the referendum, that's fine, because there is a process for holding a public hearing process now. That will entail, obviously, you having to open up your meeting to the potential for a large amount of people coming forward to speak. And that's completely your choice. But in any event, even if you did the referendum first, you'd still have to have a public hearing. So the question is, do you want to have someone being able to actually push the button, fill in the circle, physically to be involved, and potentially getting a lot more folks' opinions on the issue? Because let's be honest, how many people actually show up to these meetings for public hearings? It's only the really controversial items. Now, this particular issue in this day and age clearly would probably bring a large amount of folks, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you would capture what you could potentially capture in a full referendum. Having said that, the public hearing process requires requires that you put forth a public notice in newspaper 30 days prior to the public hearing, setting forth your position as to you're having a public hearing to discuss the potential removal of monument A, B, or C, whatever it is. Once that is completed, then you have your public hearing, and based on that public hearing, you can then decide whether to keep the monument, remove the monument, relocate the monument, store the monument, whatever you wish to do. But prior to doing that, you have to have another 30 days to actually offer that particular monument for relocation or placement at a museum. Have the Historical Society or some other military battlefield accept it and put it on their property. So there's procedural steps to follow, but there is the option now available to have those monuments removed, relocated, or contextualized, which is the term du jour these days. But in any event, those are your options. There's no right or wrong option. It's completely up to you all to decide on how you want to proceed with this particular question.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I think that as was discussed whenever this went on the agenda, this is just to start the discussion as to what ends up taking place. I wouldn't think that there would end up being any end result today, but it would just be the start of that process. That's what Mark has laid out. So starting to listen to the community and to be able to actually move forward. So it's the board's process. Whatever you choose to do, we will try to work with that and move forward.
Thank you. I know this is a delicate issue, but I've already talked to Mr. Clinton and asked him if he would get a committee or a group to discuss this and bring back recommendations to the board. He's to set the committee up as you see fit and just bring the findings back to us so we can look at it and discuss it.
Okay, yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm glad to do that. It's a big job and an important job, like y'all said, but as Gary said in his introduction, Bob Husky as a leader, and I know this board working together can demonstrate that again. So I know we'll start off sort of detached from the board, and whatever group that I form, as you and I talked about, Mr. Chairman, would be just me from the board and then citizens, and we'll work together to try to come up with an approach. Two questions I have that we may not have the answer to yet. One is the scope. I mean, we're talking here mostly about monuments, but there's also statements of belief. I mean, I think it was last month, we adopted a statement. It's never got any public input, so I mean, I would suspect that you would want me to include consideration of that type of thing in this too, along with the monuments. I mean, what's our guiding principle in terms of all the things that are happening now in our country? Is that right? I mean,
yes, sir.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely.
Then the other question is, somebody, I think Aaron may have said, it'll take some time. Do we have any idea how much time it should take? I mean,
whatever is necessary.
Well, he's usually on the board before you get the answer.
I mean, it's completely at your discretion, obviously. If the board is seeking some kind of, reasonable turnaround, maybe 2-3 months, but again, that's completely up to you all to decide how to. I mean, if you leave it wide open, you may not get any answers relatively quickly, or in a reasonable time. So, you may want to set some timeline. weeks to get back to the issue. And if more time is needed, then you just spend more time.
But you also need to represent the organizations and the people that are out there. So the people that you choose have to represent, each area you're trying to hit. And that's hard to find those individuals. And that's the work right there.
Yeah, it will take a while.
Thank goodness you.
Sure, okay. I'll give it a shot.
Steve, I appreciate you agreeing to take that out. And I'm sure you can bring something back to us next meeting, but it takes 2 or 3 months or whatever, that's fine. Okay. Any comments?
That's just to form the group, is that right?
Yeah, and set up a committee, and if he has any idea what he will do, he can share with us.
Yeah, progress reports, yeah.
Right. Yes, sir, Doctor.
The only question I have, you mentioned, Councilman mentioned about one of the options being a referendum, where the votes occur. So at some point, there's a timeline that you have to meet to get it on the ballot, right?
That is true. That is true.
Do you know what that is?
At this moment in time, I would have to check with your registrar.
Because we're 90-some
I think you're pretty close to the deadline. Is it 81 days?
It's what?
81 days out from the election.
So we only got 10 days to make that decision?
Make that call.
10 days to make this.
If you want to do a referendum. At least to meet this election cycle. If you, nothing says you have to do it this election cycle.
Okay.
But, you can do it later on. It's just a question of how quickly you want to move.
Well, obviously, we're going to get there in 10 days, so I just, for my own information. Thank you.
Let me ask you a question, Dr. Bailey, but it could be that the committee that he forms suggests putting it on about for the following year. I mean, that could be a suggestion, I don't know.
That the committee suggests a referendum. Yeah. Suggests to the board.
The board, put it,
Right.
But we need to listen to people to find out.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, gentlemen, anything else? Mr. Flynn, thank you again. I appreciate that. You taking that on. Next item of business, any committee reports from anyone on the committee? On the board. Steve, do you have any committee reports?
Yes,
Dr. Scott Horn?
Yeah, Dr. Bailey and I and Mr. Lou met for the CARES Act funds utilization plan. And I want to say thank you for putting this whole thing together. There's 40 items on this that I can go through each one of them, but just letting you know that we've got the businesses, the workforce, the public safety, the townships, telehealth, telemedicine, all these different things that we have on here that are being looked at and itemized. Some of them are pretty easy, some of them we have to need to go through in detail a little bit more. But certainly very informative, but it says how we're going to spend that $2.9 million. So again, I appreciate the team that got this together and put this down, giving us some more information. Dr. Bailey, do you have any further on that?
No, the process will be ongoing, obviously, and, there'll be a lot of good benefit out of this. The only thing I would add is, the courthouse committee, we've already heard about what's going on there. Broadband, there's not really a committee, but there's a lot going on there. A lot of conversation, a lot of that, some of that comes out of this.
Yes, sir.
Right, so out of the CARES money, so there's some benefit there hopefully. So maybe not specifically a committee report, but there is a lot of discussion and continued work on broadband expansion and Botetourt.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
might like to mention that probably a motion would be in order for the CARES committee to be able to authorize the expenditures that would be associated with these dollars, and then bring those back to subsequent meetings. Just as an example, I know that the small business program. The EDA actually approved some of those expenditures at your last meeting, and these funds would end up being what actually pays for that. So it would probably be appropriate to go ahead and authorize the committee to be able to expend those dollars and have those available in the future.
Any discussion on that? Anybody have any heartburn over that?
Now, Gary, do we need latitude to adjust these numbers any, or?
Yes.
I know with the small business, grant business, we might be a little.
We will be within tolerance on these.
Okay.
I mean, it cannot be exactly as written because the committee is going to have to be able to meander through some of those numbers, because these were estimates to start with. Some of these are hard numbers. Some of them were estimates, and some of them were guesstimates, to be honest with you, to start with. So as numbers come in, this is going to have to change and stay within the total frame of the $2.9 million.
Right.
But it would be no more than that. And
I know the small business grant
exactly.
has been fairly successful. The application process has been pretty busy, right?
Exactly. So that, just as an example, that would be one of those areas that may meander off of what's on this list.
Need a motion on that?
I think it would be appropriate, Mr. Chair, if you would, if the chair would accept a motion for the CARES committee to be able to act on the expenditure of these dollars as long as it was within the general parameters as described in those expenditures, and not to exceed the total amount of CARES dollars that have been provided to the county.
Okay, I'll just make a motion on what you just said. I'm sure Mrs. Fink
You
will
did.
get it now. Okay. Do I hear a second on that motion?
Second.
Second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion's carried. Okay, any board member comments now? David?
I think I'm good, thank you, sir.
Okay, Mr. Sloan?
I'm good, sir.
Dr. Scott Horn?
I am good. We have a broadband meeting coming up this Friday at 8 o'clock. Certainly the public is welcome. Excited about seeing some things happen. So I'm looking for it's not a switch we can turn on, but it's a plan we have in play.
You guys doing a great job on that broadband. I appreciate that. You know, one of the things that the president said when we were down at that press conference, that he has made some improvements, took out some of the regulations that were prohibiting broadband from getting too faster. So hopefully that will help too. Mr. Flint, you have any comments?
Yes, sir. All right.
Okay, I have one comment. I give each one of you a copy of a resolution that Ms. Carrie Martell had submitted. She's sitting up here on Third Road, and she would like for the board to consider adopting this for Botetourt County. I would like for you supervisors to take this with you, look at it, and at the next meeting, come back ready to make a decision on whether we want to adopt this or not. We'll check with the county attorney. It is legal. It's that do a lot more than what the other resolution of the Second Amendment rights did, but I've had a number of people that asked me to bring this up for the board. So if you take it with you in the next meeting, we'll make a decision on that, if that's okay with you. Okay. And any questions on that before we go to the last item? Okay, if there's no questions, there is a vacancy on the Economic Development Authority. This term expires on November the 1st, 2022. Do we have any recommendations on that?
Chairman, I'd like to nominate Amy Stennis White to take this position.
Okay, well, we have a recommendation.
I'll second that.
To,
But if you
Amy White on that.
You talking?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's the second of Dr. Scott Horn. Any questions on that? All in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, the motion is carried, and I do believe that's the last thing on our agenda. So with that, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for coming out.
Mark, thank you very much.
You're very welcome, sir.
Thank you, Marcus.
Yeah.
I have no idea. Hopefully something good. I'm still streaming.